Standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We ask you, Lord, for your guidance as we review and vote on the documents we have produced throughout this fiscal year. Bless the individuals, elected, staff, and volunteers whose involvement resulted in quality roadmaps to continue to build an amazing community in which we live, play, and work. We thank you, Lord, for your continued guidance. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Councilman Holman. And as I look, we're all here tonight. I think that we've had a couple meetings where somebody was gone, but we're all on the dais sitting. So welcome everybody that's been, I know you were here. I'm not, a couple of people were gone. All right, we're going to start with communications, and we have two communication items. The first item is an Innovation Academy update and recognition. Kim Bradford to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come before you this evening. I am very proud to be giving you an update on the Innovation Academy and recognizing the team members that participated in this program between October 2013 and April 2014. So just by way of some background, the Innovation Academy is a program that was offered by the Alliance for Innovation, a nonprofit organization actually headquartered in Tempe, but actually facilitates an international coalition of local governments that are looking to transform how we do business through sharing best practices and focusing on innovation. So the Innovation Academy came about through 6 years of research with ICMA and ASU, and they offered it nationwide for the first time last summer. Goodyear was lucky enough to be one of 8 cities selected to participate, and the opportunity came at a really great time for us. We had actually just established our performance management program. That facilitated the adoption of our strategic action plan, and that has goals related to innovation and efficiency in there. We also had an update and approval of our new performance appraisal system. As part of that, we included 5 core values of customer service, and innovation is one of those, and all employees are evaluated on that. So through this opportunity, we actually did an all-call for employees that wanted to participate in this program. We had 14 members of our team, a cross-functional team that included all departments in the city, except for 2, which we were limited in our capacity to include. We had 14, and we actually went above what they allowed. The program contained 2 major tracks. First was a training program. We had webinars with the Alliance, key faculty, and also in collaboration with the other 7 cities that were participating. We also had a team project, and as part of that, what we did is we wanted to focus on something that was related to innovation. Our team brainstormed what were the project opportunities that were out there, not only among our team ideas, but also reaching out to hundreds of employees across the city, asking them for their ideas as well. We had over 50 project ideas, but one of the overarching themes that really emerged was people did not want the conversation on innovation to stop with this program. So we had a lot of one-and-done project ideas, but a couple of suggestions emerged to create an actual innovation program for the city, so we would continue this conversation beyond the academy. That led to our project selection, which was creating a framework and implementation plan for a program that would be rolled out to all employees. So there's 7 little boxes on this framework here, and that represents actually a lot of hard work, dialogue, and research that was a collaboration of not only our 14 team members, but also the best practices that we learned through the academy and feedback from our employees. I won't go through all of them, but I do want to highlight a couple things that are really going to propel the city's conversation on innovation. First is the sustainment of the innovation team. The team was formed to go through March when the training program was over. And so the first recommendation is actually to sustain this team and continue this evolution, creating innovation ambassadors throughout the city. So we have our team that I will be recognizing this evening. We do have several of our team members here. But then we will also be adding new team members and continuing to do that and build capacity throughout the organization. The other thing that we are doing is creating an innovation forum. This will be a technology-supported application on our SharePoint site. We're working with our information technology division to develop that right now. Council had the opportunity during the budget process to hear of the efficiencies that are going on in our departments. And what we want to do is actually create a forum so people can submit the things that they're doing, but also their ideas that they may not know what to do with, so our team can help them move those forward. That will also help us tell our innovation story on a regular basis, so as we look at performance measures, talking about the efficiencies that we're creating, we have a great place that has all that information in one place. And then the other one I wanted to mention briefly is training. We did learn a lot from the training program from the Alliance. We will be creating a best practice innovation program for the city so employees can get benefit of the training program that we experienced. But also one of the key components that we're focusing on is lean. And you may have heard that, and that's really a process that focuses on streamlining your operations, focusing on efficiencies, and reducing waste. So we also have a subcomponent of our team that is focusing on creating a 4-hour intro to lean program, and we're actually going to be rolling that out later this year for employees. So you can see there's really a lot of elements that go into this, but the focus is on making sure this conversation doesn't stop just because we have completed the academy. So I will be introducing our Innovation Academy team. You see them pictured here. Before I get to recognizing them, I just want to first say thank you to our city manager, our deputy city managers, and our directors who, since the opportunity first came about, were very supportive of our participation and the time that we took over a 7-month period to really develop this program, and will continue to do so. We had the opportunity to present this framework to them, very supportive, and continue to support the employees' participation as we move forward. So what I'll do is I will read off the members of the Innovation Academy team that did complete. I did receive certificates of completion from the Innovation Academy. So as I read their names, for those who are here, if they could come up, and then I will hand their certificates, and we will get a photo with the council. So start with Carrie Barfield, who represented the Public Works Department, Kelly Comstock-Snell in Fire, Sabrina Dezo in Human Resources, Tim Fisher in Human Resources, John Gaio in Finance, Ken Lawler from our Fire Department, Joe Pinuelos from Police, Ronald Raharda, Information Technology Services, Dave Side, Parks and Recreation, Marco Vasquez from Engineering, Katie Wilkin, who during our academy represented the Development Services Department, and Marie Claire Wilson from Legal. So if you guys want to come over here, I know Mike is going to take a picture.
We're going to do like we did last time. We're going to do like we did last time.
Let's see if I'm going to let her guide that. Nobody told me what they wanted to do. So. They want us to do it. Oh, you're fine. No. I'm not sure he wanted to do that. I didn't get instruction on this. Do you want counsel on this or not?
Yes.
All right, well then let's move, well, we'll move this direction.
Okay.
So what we told everybody, we sort of have, and he's not going to speak up. From now on in pictures, we want this group to turn your shoulder that way, and this group to turn your shoulder this way, all right? And then close up. because we're finding people are getting their heads cut off and pictures that shouldn't be. So guys, this side moves this way. You guys, yes. Yeah, just a little bit. All right, come up here, Joe. Let's see. And then it's up to you to decide who's going to see what.
Joe, you guys right a little bit.
The other eye.
All right, you ready?
Oh, I'm standing now. Do I need to go down so they can
No, no, you're fine.
Great.
One for Bill today.
I'll give a moment. Anybody on the council have any comments they wanted to make? We didn't give you time for that. You all right with that? Great job.
Just great job.
Kim, it's a great job, and
Appreciate
it's nice to see we're carrying that innovation. We're going to continue it. And it's just going to be cost savings in the end and better use of time. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much for your leadership on this. All right, the next communication item is going to be an update on the library participation and visitation since the opening in February, and also, excitingly, the update, which we're back into innovation subject here, on the Innovation Hub activities. And Nathan Torres to present.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm very excited tonight to present, have before you an update on the library. When we had the vision of the library opening several months ago, we imagined that it would be, the underlying theme was that it would serve as a hub for the community. And I'm here to tell you tonight and demonstrate that it is just that. Not only is it a hub for innovation, it's a hub for exploration, it's a hub for learning, it's a hub for connecting with others in the community, and it has been very, very successful to this point, and we anticipate that that success will continue. However, that success just doesn't happen by itself. It starts with a great facility, great leadership, great planning, but we have some primary drivers that are helping accomplish this success. You will hear from them tonight. The first one is Jesse Peterson, who is the driving force behind the Innovation Hub partnership with ASU. And then you will hear from Aaron McFarland, who's Maricopa County's branch manager for the Goodyear facility. So with that, I'd like to present, without further ado, Jesse Peterson to update on the Innovation Hub.
Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you, Nathan, for that intro. Just for the benefit of everyone and the audience as well, since this is kind of the first time we've come before you guys after going into an agreement with ASU, I was just going to start the presentation with just some brief refresher and background before we go into the exciting part, which is the success we've seen. So on February 24th, City Council approved a license agreement formalizing the partnership with the city and ASU to designate 1,000 square feet in the library for free business development services, for startup resources for innovators and entrepreneurs on a daily basis, as well as access to practical academic classes both online and physically in the library provided by ASU. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that even though the legal agreement is specifically with the city and ASU, as Nathan mentioned as well, the county library staff has been an amazing partner every single day. This could not happen without the partnership and the close partnership that we've had, as you'll hear from Erin as well when she comes up. So just to kind of cover briefly what's actually provided at the Innovation Hub. So those free business programs, workshops, so we have webinars available as well as those ASU classes. One-on-one business mentoring is offered there. The opportunity to collaborate with motivated professionals, that's kind of the whole purpose of the space, and we've seen a lot of that happening over there. The library has been great to provide business-related books, current periodicals. They continue to add those materials, as well as a PC that's publicly used for workforce development, as well as new resources that Aaron might mention that are coming up that we've noticed a lot of the other libraries have had, and we got right on that to be able to provide those to the users of the space as well. Free Wi-Fi, which we see used all the time, as well as meeting rooms that are available for reservation, which are what we've learned seem to be in all of these spaces that are part of the Alexandria ASU network, seem to be one of the biggest, used pieces of the facility, which is having a place for businesses to go outside of either their home-based business or even their small confined spaces and get out into the community to use those. Okay, so the exciting part. Since the grand opening on February 28th, over 120 people have signed in, they've walked in, or they've attended the events and classes that we've had over there. And that's 4 months, 120 people. We were excited about that. I can't stress that enough. With those events we've had, we've seen multiple business connections facilitated. So that's having folks come in who say, I own this type of business, I do this type of business. Having other folks come and say, I need that type of service. We've been able to connect those, and that's been the exciting thing to see as well. We've distributed over 600 flyers for the Innovation Hub. That's whether it's been at the community colleges, we've gone into the banks. I've brought them literally everywhere I go. I know Councilmember Campbell has probably seen them in multiple places. We've also given them to the community, the neighborhood services representative here at the city, the coordinator. She has brought them into the HOAs to make sure that our HOAs know what's going on. So we've spread the word pretty far in the West Valley. I've heard folks all the way up as far as Surprise, as far as Buckeye, who are calling, asking about the services that we provide over there. The free ASU classes, as I mentioned, not only have we had those live there in the library, we are also streaming the classes every Friday that happen at other libraries so that individuals can come to the Innovation Hub and get access directly to those classes that are being held elsewhere in the Valley. I think our start was pretty decent. We had a few people show up to the first couple classes. We've had folks who show up to every class now, and the attendance has grown, and that's probably the primary place we see those business connections happen, where folks are just handing each other their business cards and moving forward with doing business together. Multiple media inquiries and coverage have happened. I think our communications department for that, definitely for helping us with that, between us pushing, what's been going on there, also the press releases. I think the most recent coverage I saw was in the West Valley View, and whenever we're covered there, I get lots of phone calls, so it's always very exciting to see. In addition, we've done a lot of outreach and created working partnerships with regional business assistance agencies. We've done with local businesses and education partners, just to name a few of those. That would include the Arizona Commerce Authority. We've worked with the Small Business Development Center, SCORE, the Southwest Valley Chamber, Comerica Bank, that's local right here. They do a lot of work with small businesses. They were interested and instantly asked us if they could help us promote the space. So that was really exciting for us. We've also participated and presented the Innovation Hub out in the field to local business groups. Some of those local business groups have now asked to hold their meetings at the space, which we've worked with them to set them up to do that. We've got into the Estrella Mountain Community College into classes. We actually brought classes to the space to get their business students interested, excited. They have an entrepreneurship club up there. We got into their club and made sure that they knew what was going on. And then Leadership West was a recent opportunity that we had as well to go and present what's going on at our Innovation Hub. And something really exciting to me that finally happened after many months of working on it was we worked with SCORE to get one-on-one business mentoring in the space on Saturdays, which was huge. So they do business mentoring over at the Southwest Valley Chamber, as you're probably aware right now, but their hours are limited to be able to do that over there. And for most of the folks who need that mentoring, it's the after hours, after general work hours. So we started that this month in June, and our first week of putting out the opportunity, we not only filled up every weekend in June, we had people calling for other days that were possibly open. SCORE was able to accommodate those, and we've now filled up all the way through July as well. So folks really, really wanted that opportunity. We were glad to bring that to them. So what's next? Because we're obviously not stopping there. This Friday, we'll have another ASU class live right there in the Innovation Hub with how to set up an LLC. So of the different topics, we've done business development, we've done how to pitch your business idea. The most recent one coming up is going to be how to set up an LLC. We're working with ASU, as all of the other libraries are as well, to do access to ASU's Rapid Startup School digital library. So that's taking all of the courses that they've ever had and providing access to those anytime for folks to come to the library and view those. Additional focus programming. So we're starting to learn more about the demographics of the folks who are using the space and our community to learn what type of programming they need. So we're definitely working on honing in on that. Increased one-on-one mentoring, because we've realized it's a hit, and so there's a need for it. And hosting more business meetings and events. So those are just a few of the things that we're looking to keep doing. So that was my brief update to you guys on what's going on over there. I know that you guys, as a council, we appreciate it. I know the library appreciates it. I know I appreciate it. I know our business community appreciates taking the risk to do this, and I'd argue it's paid off. So.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
no,
know,
thank you.
just stay right there.
Yeah.
Questions from council on any of this, what's going on? Any more? Is it all pretty? I did have someone call me at home, and wouldn't disclose what they had created, but they needed someone to talk to take it a step further, and I just happened to have the number, and so I haven't heard from that individual yet as to what happened. But that's what you hope. You hope that they're busy creating things, but they really don't know who to call next and where to take it to, and this is certainly going to help. My question is, have we had any other visits from the ASU individuals specifically during this time frame?
Mayor, yes, we have, they also hold entrepreneurship hours, and so they'll provide office hours for us where they come and put staff directly in there, and we generally try to schedule that right after the ASU classes that happen, because that's often when the folks who are coming to use the space want more follow-up. And then whether that's a scheduled time or not from ASU, their staff has been amazing to stick around and give that opportunity for one-on-one afterwards. So the direct access to ASU has been
That's
impressive.
great. You know, you hear a lot about the word innovation. It's in everybody's topic and in the conversation, but you don't know what's behind it. So you say, okay, innovation, it's just a neat word to say today, but you're actually doing something behind the words, and that's really great to hear. And I'm especially interested that our small businesses are taking advantage of this, because we were in hopes that that would happen, so.
Yes, absolutely.
Good, thanks, good
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you. I'm actually going to, sorry.
Oh, wait.
I'm going to try, no, sorry. I'm going to turn it over to Erin McFarland.
You know, you said that at the beginning, but then you closed it out, and so I forgot. So, hello, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here to be able to present on how well we're doing at the Goodyear Branch Library. I'm going to go over just a few short numbers and talk a little bit about what we're doing at the library. And then we have some guests here that want to be, or we've asked them to come and be recognized as our summer readers, because we're in the middle of the summer reading program. So I'll talk a little about that. Okay, so the library officially opened its doors on January 29th, and the last numbers that I checked, active customers are customers that have used their library card in the last year. So we have, 25,000 customers that have used the library in general. Active customers, we have 2,453. Of those, 1,228 have gotten their library cards since the library opened in January. So that's pretty incredible. Every day we have people that come in and say, I didn't even know we had a library. I just drove past and saw your great yellow sign and know that it's here now. So we are always amazed at how many library cards we make every day. Let's see, so our gate count, you can see, is up 23% over, that's the 4-month total over the 2013 gate count. So we've had over 38,000 people in through the doors since we opened in January. And then the circulation is even bigger. You see that the circulation continues to grow up every month, and since we opened at the end of January, it's up over 45% from last year, which is pretty incredible. We hear sometimes, you guys don't have any books on the shelf. 44% of our collection is checked out right now. I checked before I came over today. We have books. We have over 24,000 items, but people like them, and they're taking them out, which is incredible. So we're really excited to see that and to see people using the library. So the summer reading program is what we're working on right now. It began May 29th and it runs until July 26th. We had in 2013 878 registered participants for the entire program. The numbers that I gave Jessie that she dropped in last week were 1,040 so far in the last 3 weeks registered. For this year, I actually checked again today and it's 1,085 now. So we've gone up 45 since last Friday. So you see that's already a huge increase over the end of the summer last year, and we're seeing people sign up every day. we're tracking minutes read, so you see we have over 220,000 minutes read. But the other thing that I'm really excited about is we've had a ton of programs at the library with the ability to have the programming room and plan and make sure that we have the space for the programs. It was last week 845 so far. We've had this week, I checked today, it was over 1,000 people have attended library programs since May 29th. And most of those are programs for children. We're seeing upwards of 200 people at one single program for children that we're able to do in that awesome programming room. So we're really excited about the number of people that are coming in. And we're also excited because this year we're not just focusing on reading, which is super important to stop that summer slide, but it's also been proven that the experiences that people have in the community also work to stop that summer slide. And one of the library experiences we offered was to have people come to City Council. So I would be very happy if the summer readers, do you guys mind coming up and just, these are summer readers that have come tonight. Now, some people came just because they are summer readers. They came, come on up, guys, you can come up. And moms and dads can come too. It's all good. But if you are here and you are a summer reader and we just didn't know and didn't invite you tonight. So if there are any of you guys who are involved in the summer reading program, anybody else is more than welcome to come up. But we wanted to recognize some kids that are coming in and using the library, checking out books and reading all summer long. And so we are really excited to have that. I also wanted to recognize the Friends of the Library, Wally Campbell is president, who have paid for some of our summer programs. We couldn't do it without the support of the Friends and the support of the community. So we have the Arizona, the Phoenix Zoo is coming on Thursday, and the Challenger Science Center is coming, and both of those programs are paid for by the Friends of the Library.
Well, that's
So,
just
Fantastic. Want a picture up front with the rest of us?
yeah, do you guys mind having a picture with
of course not.
Well, can we come down? Because they're so little. Yeah. Cheryl, you're going to come down too.
Do you want them to just come up the ramp?
Okay.
Let me do it in this corner.
Stand up in the corner.
Right up in here. Right up here.
See, I didn't have to, Joe. She provided her raw material. We're going to keep Cheryl in company.
Thank you. You guys are great.
Okay, we got it. Let's do it. We got
Please,
it.
not
You
from
got-
this.
Can you, whoop.
Isn't that great?
You know, Youth Commission, you were listening to us.
I was born an old man.
No,
So full of
Mayor,
Yes,
can I say
of
something?
course. Councilman Campbell?
I spend a lot of time in the Goodyear Library because our Friends of the Library has a section where we sell used books. And all of the money that we raise selling used books for 25, 50 cents, and $1 in donations, we give back into the library. But I have never been in the library that it is not full of children enjoying their books, the puzzles and everything. And some of the events, it is standing room only. And I just, our council is so thrilled that the community has embraced this library to the extent that they have. And we are just delighted. And we are going to outgrow that building sooner than later.
Is that a warning?
As she's directing her line of sight to the city
You know what that means.
Yeah.
Did you see that, Brian? It was like,
I was looking at our city manager, but it is wonderful and it's very well used. And I would like to thank Jesse for the Innovation Hub. That is really an activity. It's wonderful to go in and see people using the computer, using the desk, talking to one another, and I have never been in there with it totally empty. There's always someone there. So that's been a wonderful addition for our library and for our city and for our residents.
Go ahead.
It's
Councilman
been a
Holman.
wonderful addition for our business community.
Yes.
You know, having quality places where they can gather to talk to each other, especially home-based businesses that need an opportunity to discuss options and not reinvent the wheel. It is just an amazing, amazing place to go. So I think it's, thank you, ASU. Thank you for the staff that works so hard in there, because it really is important.
Well said, thank you. Any other comments? Yes. Councilman Loretano.
I just want to say thank you to everyone involved in the library. It's so great to hear that great news and everything you're doing there. And it's a lovely facility. And thank you to our summer readers. You guys are great. And, you know, you are just going to be so much ahead when you go back to school next year because reading is fun. And I am so glad you all enjoy it.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo.
Oh, I just want to say I know our library is well overdue, and I appreciate all the programs you have, and I know my granddaughter uses it a lot, and loves to read. So again, I appreciate all the programs, and I appreciate the effort of bringing the community there. Thank you.
Well, since I'm the final one here, I have to say that, you know, before we opened this, I had many people comment libraries are passé. You don't need a library anymore. But that's not so, because a library is an area where you actually communicate, whether you're on a computer, there are people around. You're not secluded in one room by yourself, and you're sharing ideas. And for the children, you know, we have an education problem in the United States, and we have some schools in our area that children aren't reading at the level they should be. So I think this summer program is going to help, as long as we can get them transportation there. So I'm just going to throw that out to you, that there are some families that lack in that transportation, and if there's some way that we can find and help them, the little ones get there during the day, for that would be great. So
Can I
once
ask a
more.
question?
Yes, Sherry.
In the future, is there any chance of opening on Sundays or later into the evenings for some of us working parents?
She's got an answer for everything. I know she does.
And the answer is, it all depends on the IGA that the county signs with Goodyear. So that's up to, you know, that would be looked at in the future, I assume, if that's something that Goodyear was interested in, but it all depends on how that goes. So I don't have any power over that, but that is something that in the future, if you're interested
Yeah,
in,
well, that's
it
good
can be
for-
looked at,
I
yeah.
guess we need to put that for the next budget time around.
Good idea.
Yes, Councilman
On
Osborne?
that, are bookmobiles still around? Is that something that has ever been considered too?
Well, the county library district doesn't have any bookmobiles. They've taken that outreach out. Now, library staff does do outreach. We actually are partnering with the Goodyear Parks and Recreation this summer. We go out to the summer camps to those kids who might not have a chance to come to the library. We've signed up, I think like 65 kids so far in the summer reading program simply by library staff going out. We present a program at the summer camps. So we are recognizing those partnerships, and we recognize, Mayor Lord, that there are some places where children aren't able to get into the library. So we're working on outreach programs. We are working on possibly going out to where they serve free school lunches in the summer at the schools and
Perfect.
doing library programs there. So not a bookmobile per se, but other innovative ways that we can get out into the community and bring the library to people. Because the library is in the building, we are the library, and so we try to bring out, you know, the library programs as much as we can to the community.
Well, I agree. A round of applause for our library.
Wow.
Thank you very much. All right, now is the time for citizens who would like to address the city council on any non-agenda item. I do have one speaker card, and as that speaker comes up, I will continue to read how and long they can speak. We have Julio Iglesias, and he's going to speak on transparency. There are several things that can happen here. The council certainly are going to listen, Mr. Iglesias, to your comments. We may take legally only one of the following responses. We can respond to criticism if the council so desire. We can request that staff investigate and report on that matter. We can request the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. And I think you've been here before, so you know you have 3 minutes. The yellow light and buzzer will let you know you have 30 seconds left to speak. So before you begin, even though I identified your name, if you would please identify yourself clearly and stating your name and address.
My name is Julio Iglesias. I live at 2009 North 161st Drive here in Goodyear.
You're on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. TIPS, TIPS, is my acronym for Transparency in Public Service. It's a seemingly foreign concept to the Goodyear Police Department. The department has been involved in multiple scandals recently, as well as several lawsuits, including one filed by Lieutenant Kim Celaya last week. Former employees, Terry Woodmansey and John Rowan, were paid a combined $700,000 due to police misconduct in the Jared Pendleton homicide case. That does not include the exorbitant legal fees Goodyear spent on private attorneys to defend the case. Shea Pendleton just recently settled for an undisclosed amount on her lawsuit related to the death of her son Jared and Goodyear's mishandling of the case. These are just 3 examples of the parade of debacles by Goodyear Police. Now, regarding transparency or the lack thereof, I'm not aware of one word spoken or written by anyone in the media or by Goodyear about the Pendleton settlement. The public was simply not informed. This is a highly controversial, unsolved case involving the homicide of a young man. A Goodyear police officer was implicated in Jared's death, and the resulting corruption associated with the case directly led to several high-ranking personnel being fired or demoted. And it likely cost the city more than $500,000 in legal fees and settlement costs, and not one word anywhere about it. Citizens have a right to know where our tax dollars are being spent and misspent in the case of private legal fees to defend the indefensible. Goodyear is supposed to shed light on vital incidents. Instead, we're being kept in the dark. Isn't it essential that citizens know everything that is going on with our government, even if it is politically inconvenient for you or any city management? Hopefully, you're aware by now of the Channel 12 news report in which I appeared this past Thursday night regarding yet another murky scandal within the police department. My involvement with the report was based simply on my desire to do the right thing. Eventually, I also hope to get answers regarding my own wrongful termination from a distinguished 8-year career as a Goodyear police officer. To that end, I've composed a transparent letter that comprehensively details what really occurred within the police department and the court that led to their unfortunate and illegal actions against me. I have the right, I feel, to at least explain my side of the story and hopefully rectify this injustice. I would like to give the members of the council the chance to hear the true and complete story and account of what really happened to me. I have 7 copies of my letter right here. I am asking by a show of hands right here now, individually among you, who has the courage to give this Goodyear citizen the right to be heard and to be answered on these? Does anybody have that courage to say that I want to hear what happened?
I'm going to respond as a mayor just quickly, and I think you're aware that because there is a lawsuit in action against our city, we cannot respond. And you have presented this tonight, and you sort of kind of encapsulated the whole thing. You put several things all in one. And so that makes it very difficult for anybody to respond to. But we welcome the report, so how about handing it to the lawyer, or can they just hand it to you to the council people? All right.
And respectfully, Mayor Lord, this has
Yeah.
nothing to do with any lawsuits or Lieutenant Salai or anything else. This is strictly my situation that has been rectified 2 years ago. So it has nothing to do with any litigation pending.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but your presentation here started out with the court case, and so you were really kind of intermixed the whole thing.
Okay,
So
but
I
just
think,
for the record,
I
the
think
letter
you put us
itself
in a
has nothing to do with
situation,
it.
but we gladly will take your report, each and every one of us.
Okay,
So
thank you.
if you
To the
wanna
clerk.
just-
To the clerk. Thank you.
And thank you for coming up. Okay, we're going to consent agenda. Will the city clerk please read consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.6 by title only, please?
Item 6.1, approve draft minutes from a special meeting held on June 2nd, 2014. Item 6.2, approve a request for a final plat for the sanctuary at Saraville Village, subdividing 5.43 acres into 26 single-family lots and 5 tracts located at the southwest corner of Lower Buckeye Parkway and 161st Lane within the Saraville Village Planned Area Development as amended, subject to stipulations. Item 6.3, adopt Resolution 14-1639, adopting the 2015-2017 City Strategic Action Plan. Item 6.4, adopt Resolution 14-1642, accepting Governor's Office of Highway Safety Grant Award for $17,000 and authorizing the city manager or designee to execute any and all documents for the award and administration of the grant. Item 6.5, authorize the city manager to execute contract number 14-2956 in the amount of $630,653 to Red Point Contracting to construct project number WA 1402, Historic Goodyear Water Line Replacement Phase 3. Item 6.6, adopt Ordinance 14-1302, amending and replacing Chapter 11, Offenses, 1-34 Fireworks of the Goodyear City Code, providing for penalties, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Does anyone from the council wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Councilman Osborne?
I just have a question on 6.6.
All right, can we address that?
Paul, Chief? Question on fireworks I just had.
Don't you wait till he gets up.
Right now, or do you need me to
Yeah,
wait?
wait till he comes up. You have a question for
Yes,
him? Yes. Paul, if you come up here while she has it.
I understand that the law has changed
Yes.
regarding fireworks.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that it's clear to our residents and that I understand this correctly. So through a time frame,
Yes.
citizens are allowed to put off these permissible fireworks.
Correct.
However, in number 5, it says that they cannot be let off within parking lots, city parks, public schools, understandable.
Yes.
But it also says city streets. So if somebody's out in the front yard in the street because they think it's safer, our residents going to understand the difference. You can do it in your yard because it's a citizen's option, but you go into the city street, they're not supposed to do it there.
Correct. That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
How are we going to let our citizens know what they're allowed to do?
Yeah, we can certainly put some of the changes out on social media as a way to let people know. Obviously we're up kind of against a time crunch with 4th of July, just a
Right,
couple weeks
right.
away now. So
I
we'll
just
try
don't
to
want there to
inform
be
them.
confusion, because that could really be, I want it to be safe out in my street rather than in my yard, and then it's like, you're not supposed to do it in the street.
Well,
You're
I think
supposed
We're trying
cul-de-sacs,
to-
I think cul-de-sacs might
Well,
be the,
it's still a city street,
We're trying to
unless you're in a
prevent-
gated community.
We're trying to prevent the nuisance to the surrounding neighbors by being in the middle of the street. But yeah, I mean, it's,
Okay.
Councilman
Understand.
Loretano has a question.
I remember when the fireworks first came out, the stores posted our ordinance. Maybe we could get just
Yes.
ditto copies, of what the change is. And they were posted right by the fireworks. When people
Yeah.
bought them, it was right there. And that might be the best way, since it's so short, to
Okay.
get that out.
that's a good idea.
Thank you, that was all.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I need a motion, a second, please, to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Stipp and a second from Councilman Campbell. A roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Holman?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Great, we're at the business section. So the first item will be the Youth Commission presentation and recognition of the outgoing Youth Commission members and new appointments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I, with the help of these young men and women standing behind me, will be presenting a few Youth Commission-related items to you this evening. The first item will be a year-in review presentation that will recap some of the Youth Commission's activities over the last year. So I'll invite Devasia Nelson up, and she will start us off.
Mayor and Council, good evening. My name is Devasia Nelson, and I am the Youth Commission Vice Chair of the 2013-2014 term. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you today. We are here today to provide you with a year-in review presentation. Throughout the term, we welcomed various City of Goodyear leaders to our monthly meetings to provide us an overview of what their department does to help the city function. These briefings have allowed us to grow a better understanding of the different aspects of the municipal government. In addition, to fulfill the Youth Commission's important duty of engaging residents throughout the community outreach, we participated in several activities throughout the term that produced better outcomes for the City of Goodyear and our citizens. In the following presentation, we will provide Mayor and Council an overview of the Youth Commission's term. Specifically, we will discuss the educational briefings we received from city staff and provide a synopsis of our community service activities.
All right. The following slides will recap our 5 briefings. Our first briefing came from City Manager Mr. Brian Dockey and Mayor Georgia Lord, who attended our August meeting to help kick off the 2013-2014 term. Mr. Dockey presented a general overview of the City of Goodyear, including information about the city's organizational chart, an overview of the key areas in the city, such as the airport, the employment corridor, the city center site, and the Goodyear ballpark, as well as Goodyear's potential to grow, both in development and in population, and the positive economic indicators that suggested that the city is recovering from the Great Recession. Also, Mayor Lord discussed her responsibilities as mayor, as well as the responsibility of the city council, and what led her to seek public office.
In September, we held our monthly meeting at the Goodyear Ballpark. During our meeting, Dave Side gave us an overview of the Parks and Recreation Department, including the role in maintaining parks, facilitating recreation programs, and fostering a high level of quality of life for Goodyear residents. In addition, Debbie DeVinny discussed what it takes to pull off a successful spring training season and provided us a behind-the-scenes tour of the ballpark. Later in the term, we returned to the ballpark to watch our Cleveland Indians take on the Colorado Rockies. In November, Assistant Chief of Police Jeff Rogers attended our meeting and provided us general overview of the Goodyear Police Department, including its structure, crime statistics, and the concept of community policing, which aims to establish trusted communication channels between the community and the police department.
In February, the Commission received a briefing on the city's Water Resources and Environmental Service divisions. Mark Holmes discussed the important role the Water Resources Division plays in developing and implementing water policies that will help ensure the long-term viability of our city. Mark Siemens discussed his division's important role in providing water sanitation, water production, water distribution, and water collection services for the city. And then in April, Human Resources Director Lyman Lockett attended our monthly meeting to brief us on the Human Resources Department. He explained the important role that the department plays in the employee life cycle, which includes recruitment and selection, onboarding and orientation, performance development and management, employee relations and retention, and offboarding transition.
As mentioned previously, throughout the year we conducted a variety of community service projects and outreach. The following slides will provide you with a summary of those activities. Our first event was in July of 2013 at an Arizona Assistance in Health Care fundraiser held at Brunswick Bowl in Glendale. AAHC is a nonprofit volunteer organization which assists cancer patients with non-medical expenses when the cost of prolonged medical care creates financial hardships. The fundraiser was aimed at raising money for cancer patients at Cancer Treatment Centers of America. As volunteers, we helped with the setup and cleanup, assisted with their raffle, and helped register guests, and any other jobs needed to be done. The event was a lot of fun as well as an success.
In October, the Youth Commission participated in a CERT exercise held at the Estrella Mountain Ranch Fire Station. Commissioners played varying roles as victims or witnesses of a natural disaster, complete with gory yet realistic makeup injuries. It was a neat experience to see how the trainees reacted, and we learned quite a bit about what to do in the event of a crisis. In late October, the Youth Commission volunteered at the city's annual GAIN event, which aims to foster community involvement and neighborhood cohesion. We assisted the Friends of the Library book sale and helped staff the city manager's office booth. We had a great time interacting with the citizens and handing out promotional items.
Also in October, the Youth Commission participated in Make a Difference Day. Excuse me. During the day of service, we worked with the local Boy Scout troop to paint a fence at the Goodyear skate park. It was great to collaborate with other local teens to make a positive impact on our community, especially at a place that caters to people our age. Later that month, the Youth Commission participated in the Special Olympics 2013 All-Star Softball Tournament and Public Safety Exhibition at the Goodyear Ballpark. Special Olympics is considered the world's largest sports organization for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. The Commission provided support to officials when needed, helped set up multiple vendor booths, and assisted in answering participants' and attendees' inquiries. We also were given the opportunity to observe the fire department demolish a car for charity.
A busy October concluded with the Youth Commission participating in Trick or Treat So Others Can Eat. Councilmember Osborne pitched the initiative to the Youth Commission as a fun way to help those in need in advance for the upcoming holiday season.
On Halloween night, instead of soliciting candy, we trick-or-treated for canned goods and non-perishable items on behalf of the All Faith Community Services Food Bank. It was a fun and rewarding experience. At our November meeting, the Commission participated in a library-themed roundtable with Goodyear Branch Librarian Erin McFarland. Ms. McFarland discussed all the wonderful things the new library has to offer to our community. The Youth Commission was able to provide feedback on how to get teens more involved with library programming.
Thanksgiving morning, the Youth Commission participated in the Sharing Thanksgiving initiative coordinated by All Faith Community Services, which was aimed at preparing Thanksgiving meals for those in need. The Commission and other volunteers put together to-go boxes full of turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, and green beans to be delivered to families across Goodyear. It was an extremely humbling experience to make an impact on such a special holiday.
Around Christmas time, the Youth Commission delivered holiday cards to approximately 100 patients at West Valley Hospital. This was the second year straight doing this project. It was our hope that these cards would brighten the day of people who were in the hospital during the holiday season. After we finished delivering cards, West Valley Hospital staff gave us a tour of their new facilities.
In February, members of the Commission attended Youth Day at the Arizona State Capitol. We volunteered to facilitate the events of the day, and it was a great experience to be at the Capitol while the House of Representatives and Senate were in session. We even got to meet state legislators.
At the annual Tale of Two Cities parade, the Youth Commission assisted Councilmember Campbell at the Goodyear Historic Litchfield Train Station Foundation booth. It was fun to watch the parade and see our residents' pride in our community. In conclusion, we'd like to thank you for your unwavering support of the Youth Commission. We look forward to building on this year's success during the 2014-2015 term.
Thank you. Matt, before we take the picture and before you present it, can we just get council if they have anything they want to say?
Please, absolutely.
All right, any comments? Councilman Stiff?
You know, it is very important for us to hear what the youth has to offer. And it's been encouraging over the last couple of years to watch the transformation of the Youth Commission under Matt's leadership, but that he can only do so much without the rest of you. So for those of you that are leaving, and I think there are some, certainly my appreciation and thank you. For those that are just joining us or have renewed a commitment for another term, thank you very much. I don't know if you realize how important your input is, but it is very important to us, and please keep up the great work for the community.
Yes, Councilman Loretano.
I want to say thank you, Matt, and thank you to all of you for doing such a great job and taking the time and really being involved. Like Councilmember Stipp said, that really does help us to hear your opinions, what makes the community good for your generation, and how we can reach out to your generation and get, you guys are the leaders of tomorrow, so we do appreciate it. And those that are going on, congratulations and good luck in your future, and we hope to hear back from you. And those that are staying, keep up the good work.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Again, I agree with everything that's been said so far, but you are our future, and I really appreciate you stepping up. And again, and thank you all. For those that are going to move on, I'm sure you'll still be active in the community. For those that are coming on board, we really need that input. And again, you are our future, so we count on you to take it to the next level. Thank you.
Councilman Osborne.
I appreciate each and every one of you, and you also, Matt. Just to let you know, kind of the theme that you've all been doing was making a difference. And I remember when we interviewed each and every one of you, that a lot of you, that was your true, passion, was you wanted to make a difference in your community, in your city. And you've done that. I mean, look at all those great things that you said that you've done in the last year. So you have made a difference. And now going forward, as you grow older, you can change the world. And always remember that. And Matt, you did that with these guys. You know what? You made a difference in their life. And so I appreciate that also. I do have one follow-up question, though. And that is this summer, and I hope it's not too late, but City Manager, the Arizona League of Cities will be downtown this summer. And I've always wanted to have our Youth Commission, a few members, go to that conference and at least one day. And so I would really hope that there would be something that we may be able to do this year because it's close by that we could get some of our kids there. So if you could.
Yeah, go ahead and address that.
And Mayor Lord, Councilmember Osborne, I can tell you that we are actively recruiting to bring some of our folks down to the league conference. And so far, we have 4 or 5 people signed up, but we're hoping to get more. So just waiting to hear back from some of these guys after they check with their parents.
If you're in town, you really should go do it. And it's August. You'll be back at school. So yeah, right? Isn't it in August?
Mid-August.
No excuses. Okay.
You want them to
Thank you.
ditch school?
It's learning.
It's learning. This is school. This is government 101. Thank you.
Councilman Campbell?
Well, I want to thank all of you. We've done a lot of fun things this year together, and I really hate to see some of you go on, but, that's just the way it is. I hope that we'll all stay in touch, and to the new commissioners that are coming on board, we look forward to having a wonderful year with you. And Matt, do you want to introduce or tell us the commissioners that are moving on?
Well, we're going to be doing that, right?
You're going to be doing that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
just so
kinda
that
jumped-
council can know.
I jumped ship on this. I should have done a little thing. So,
All right.
You know me, I never follow the order, so.
That's all right. I just
Go
want to
with it.
thank all of y'all for your participation, and I really love that you have been able to take something away from every single meeting you've had. And Matt, you've done a wonderful job, and we're going to have to come up with some really fun things next year to introduce to the kids, and I'm sure we'll find more work for you to do, too. So thank you very much.
Councilman Holman?
Well, it's hard to be the last one in the line to tell you how wonderful it is to have a youth commission in Goodyear and have it be successful and for you all to be so involved. I personally thank you for that. Thank you, Matt, for your efforts, and I look forward to see the operation in this coming fiscal year.
Well, since I'm the last, so you weren't quite the last, this is your future. Someday, we hope you look back on this and look at how city government is run and how responsive it is, and so many different departments and things that you can get involved in. So, I hope that some of you will run for office someday, or you'll work for a city, in city government, or you'll go up to higher office. But this is being really good citizens, and this is part of being a citizen of the United States. And so, Matt, you've done a great job, and it is growing, so I appreciate that. So if we'll stop here, after any speaker cards, anybody in the audience who want to speak on this?
No, Mayor.
What could they say? We've said it all. So, Council, I'd like to have a motion, a second, please. And what we're going to be doing is appointing Joshua Hines.
Mayor.
We're going to recognize the outgoing members first. And then
Yes,
we'll do
okay,
that.
thank you. All right, first we're going to recognize the outgoing members.
So, great job, Commissioner. You guys can go ahead and take a seat. Thank you.
All right, now, wait a minute, wait. Have them line up here, because people don't know. The ones that are leaving, come on up here.
So, Mayor Lord, I'll go ahead.
I know, just want them
He's gonna announce
recognized
them one by
separately.
Announce them one by one.
You're going to announce the ones that, they reviewed me on this when I got it. I have no excuses.
It's okay.
No, it's not.
That's 3.
No, I'm guilty. All right, Matt, you've got it.
So, Mayor Lord, I'll welcome you down here to help me
Oh,
recognize
thank you.
outgoing members.
That I
please.
know.
So as several of the council members said on the dais, the end of the term is always a bittersweet time for us here in Goodyear. On one hand, we get to celebrate all the achievements of our current commission, but on the other, we have to say goodbye to some of our great leaders. This year is no different. We had 4 great senior leaders on the commission this year. They're all going on to do great and big and better things. Fortunately, we have 3 of them here this evening to recognize. So with that, I'll go ahead and call each of them up one by one and have Mayor Lord present them with a certificate of recognition. Correct. Our first commissioner is Bliss Hickman.
So, Matt, I know she's going to Texas A&M,
We won't hold that against her.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. So if you know if the others are going to the universities to tell us.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Thank you.
So Bliss,
So Giga Bliss.
so Bliss graduated from Estrella Foothills High School last month and will be attending Texas A&M in the fall. Our next commissioner that I'm going to recognize is Rachel Wynea. Rachel also graduated from Estrella Foothills last month, and she will be attending Arizona State in the fall. And our last commissioner to recognize is Wendy Pappenfuss. Wendy graduated from Desert Edge High School last month and will be attending Northern Arizona University in the fall. So the last part of my presentation will be to discuss the council subcommittee recommendation for appointments to the Youth Commission for the 2014-2015 term. At the end of each term, we obviously lose some folks, but we're happy to gain some new qualified commissioners for our next commission. So I'm happy to read the recommendation from the subcommittee. Applicants were solicited, and the council subcommittee for boards, commissions, and committees met to review submissions, interview applicants, and make a recommendation for appointment of commission members. The subcommittee is recommending the appointment of Joshua Hines, Raquel Joyner, Courtney Radkis, Abigail Ellis, and Kaylee Fugel, and the reappointment of Connor Belanger, Madison Groves, Carson Farrell, and Nick Asiardo as members of the Youth Commission to serve 2-year terms ending May 31st, 2016. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Matt. I'll just go backwards and say again, are there any speaker cards?
No,
Would
Mayor.
anybody in the audience like to speak? All right, now that we're on the right direction, I need a motion and a second, please, to appoint Joshua Hines, Rachel Joyner, Courtney Rankus, Abigail Alice, and Katie Frugel, members of the commission to serve 2 years term expiring May 31st, 2016. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Loretano and a second from Councilman Holman. Open for council discussion. I think we've already discussed all that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now. Yes. Now, can I have a motion and a second to reappoint Connor Belanger, Madison Groves, Carson Farrell, and Nick Asiardo, members of the Youth Commission to serve a 2-year term? Do I open for council discussion? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. So now the city clerk will administer the oath of loyalty.
Mayor, we still need a motion and a second on that one. On the
Oh, I forgot the motion.
Mayor, I move.
Thank you. I heard a motion from Councilman Campbell, and a second from Councilman, yes, Osborne.
Right here.
I just flew in today, you all know that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, now we're on.
Let the swearing begin.
Okay.
Oh, another one. That's 5, man. I'm on a roll.
Georgia, are your arms tired?
Yeah.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially
impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of youth commissioner
of youth commissioner
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So I do affirm.
So I do affirm.
All right.
All right, you're going to put them up over here? All right, guys.
Picture?
Okay. And you can line, I take one to one, and someone else can line some in the front. Okay? And move over to here, because we've got to get this in. Okay? All right? Go where you can be seen. Well, okay. Be seen there.
I didn't quite get that.
Somebody wants to help you.
You thought you were having a bad night.
Well, I look at it this way, it keeps staffs on their toes, and you too. So you're listening, I know you're listening. All right, you set? All right, the next item on the business is to receive the fiscal year 2013-14 third quarter financial report and consider the third quarter budget transfers. Kim?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am pleased to be before you to do a review of our third quarter financial status and also have council consideration of approving the third quarter budget transfers. In this presentation, I will give a review of the general fund, both the expenditures and revenues that we've seen through the third quarter, talk at a high level about the budget trends through the third quarter of this fiscal year. I will highlight the status of the revenues and expenditures of our other funds outside of the general fund. In the packet of information, you have information regarding the one-time supplementals that were approved for this fiscal year. I will highlight the status of some of those, as well as the budget transfers, which is the official council action that's requested here this evening. I do want to point out that, I'm trying to be quick, but not that quick.
That.
Yeah. That the full report was associated with the council packet this evening and posted on the website. So I will go through my presentation, but certainly if you have a question about anything, I can answer that during the discussion portion. So this is our general fund high-level overview through the third quarter. As you'll see, we have the revenues on top of the chart and then the expenditures on the lower level, and I will go into each of those sections in a little bit more detail on following slides. But overall, our revenues are coming in strong through the third quarter, as they have been throughout the course of this fiscal year. Our ongoing revenues, which is that first line under the general fund revenues, are at about 113% through the third quarter. And then the construction sales tax, which is our one-time revenue, is remaining strong through this third quarter at 140%. So overall, for the general fund, we're about 115% through the third quarter. In terms of our expenditures, we're right at about 65%. That is where we anticipate and where we have been historically through the third quarter. Just for a bit of context, last year at the third quarter mark, we were at 66%. And it's very consistent looking back even 3 years. So right where we would expect to be, and I will go into a little bit more detail in terms of those categories. This is the breakdown of the general fund revenue. That was just a high-level review on the last slide. So we broke down all the different categories that comprise both the ongoing and then also the one-time funds in construction sales tax on the bottom. And you'll see the breakdown of each of those categories, again, coming in strong. I do want to point out two of the categories that are higher than what we budgeted or what we anticipated seeing through our budget adoption. First is the development-related revenues. You'll see through the third quarter, those are at 169%. That does encompass our permitting, our plan review fees, all those associated with growth that we see in the community. As we've discussed throughout the course of this fiscal year, we do take a conservative approach to those revenues. They really do fluctuate depending on what's going on in the economy. And what we budget is what we reasonably anticipate our stable level of business to be. And so certainly as we see higher than anticipated growth or positive growth in the community, which we have been over the last several months and certainly through this fiscal year, we see our revenues come in higher than what we projected, and that's normal. Correspondingly, as we've discussed before, we typically see when the revenues are coming in higher like that, we see an offsetting expenditure side. So we have increased activity, and then we may expend some of those revenues for consulting fees and things like that, and I will talk about that in terms of the budget transfers later. The other category, and you'll see there defined what makes that up, includes our court fines, things like parks and recreation fees, our aquatic fees. That is also trending higher than normal. One of the areas that we're seeing strong revenues come in is in our rental revenue. But the other is we had a refund that occurred in the third quarter that is causing that to come in higher than anticipated. So that's a one-time bump, not really indicative of the overall trend that we see. So that's a one-time bump. And then the construction sales tax, as I mentioned, at 140%, overall putting us at 115% of what we anticipated to have collected through the third quarter. This is the breakdown of our general fund expenditures by category, again at that 65% level. The categories are right where we would anticipate them to be. I want to take just a moment to talk about the operating capital because that is a new area that we've had over the last couple years. During the recessions when we weren't really doing supplemental process, we didn't have that. So as a reminder, that is the one-time funding that was included in the budget for departments, so not added to their base budget, but that could be for special projects or maintenance. And so those projects may or may not be completed within the fiscal year, and I will talk about some of the highlights of what those are and where they are in the status. But overall, that is at 15%. So overall, our budget trends, as I mentioned, we are seeing our stability in our revenues. We are on track with our expenditures. Certainly, as we are now in the fourth quarter and we are approaching the end of the fiscal year, we continue to monitor both of those trends closely to make sure that we are going to come in where we estimate at the end of the fiscal year. And we also continue our quarterly analysis with our departments to make sure that we're having that dialogue so we're not being reactionary but being proactive in terms of any trends that we're seeing. Briefly talking about our other funds, you'll see them listed here. Again, they're right on track with where we would anticipate seeing them come in. We discussed at the last quarterly report that we did have a rate adjustment in our water and wastewater categories during this fiscal year period. As we developed our budget estimates for this fiscal year, we did hold the line on those projections in revenue. Not sure how that rate increase would factor coming in mid-year. We are seeing the water come in right on track. Our consumption is a little bit down, so that's why we're not seeing the higher than anticipated like we are in wastewater. And again, we continue to monitor those, especially in terms of the enterprise funds, because they are expected to be self-sustaining. In terms of expenditures, again, you will see that in line with what we saw in the general fund, we are right on track with where we typically are through the fiscal year at the third quarter mark. Looking at the historical trends, it's almost like a repeat of what we saw in previous fiscal year reports in terms of the percentages. The HERF fund, which is the Highway User Revenue Fund, that's one of our special revenue funds, and that pays for our streets program, our overlay. And a significant portion of that budget is for our overlay program. And so because that occurs late in the fiscal year, that's why that percentage is at 44%. And again, that's very much in line with what we tend to see through the fiscal year. As mentioned, we do have a full list of the one-time supplementals that were included for the fiscal year 14 budget. I will highlight a few of those, but as I mentioned, those are for special projects or maintenance needs that were considered as part of this budget process for this fiscal year. We did have our website update, which is getting ready to launch next month, and so we're very excited about that. That was one of the projects that was funded with one-time funds this year. In addition, we upgraded the audio-visual equipment at this facility. That installation has been complete, and we're just tying up the loose ends associated with that. The public safety software and equipment, that's associated with New World, our program that supports our public safety police department operations and also their equipment and their vehicles. That is in progress, but that is an example of one that was not completed within the fiscal year, so those funds will carry over to next fiscal year so they can complete those. In terms of economic development initiatives, we did complete the Focus on Success strategic plan that Council adopted this past February. And we also had the retail coach come on board, and that was an example of one-time funds that provided us with our demographic study that the Council heard and received last fall. And then finally, we had some parks and sidewalk improvements that were funded through this fiscal year. They're moving right along, progressing with those, and they're anticipated to be complete this fiscal year, as well as water and wastewater maintenance and improvements to our system. So as I mentioned, the official action with this presentation is requesting approval of the third quarter budget transfers. What these transfers do is they actually facilitate changes within our budget, but it does not increase our overall adopted budget that was approved last June. We sometimes see the need to move funds between departments or divisions due to organizational changes or funding from the capital improvement program, or receive funding in that we received during the year, such as grants or insurance reimbursements. For the third quarter, as I mentioned, you do have a full report included in your packet. I'll just highlight a couple of the transfers that occurred between January and March. We did have a transfer related to our Central Arizona water purchase. That was actually budgeted within our capital improvement plan, and we really want to categorize that as an operational cost. And so that was funding that was moved. It was budgeted originally, but it was actually moved to the operations budget in the water department. We had the purchase of our police evidence facility. If you recall, back in March, we had the opportunity to purchase a new facility that will serve the long-term needs for our police department related to their evidence program. And so the funding, while we had the funding in the budget, in the city, we had to actually do a transfer to facilitate the purchase of that facility. We did have one transfer during the third quarter that was requesting funding from the city manager contingency fund. That fund is budgeted for every year, and it's included and adopted within the budget. It's not expended unless there's an unforeseen expenditure that cannot be absorbed within the departmental budget. This last quarter, we had a transfer related to the Cincinnati Reds water meter. There was a water meter that was actually the responsibility of the city, and the team had been paying for that. And so this transfer actually facilitated payment for that, since that could not be absorbed in the Parks Department budget. We also have a transfer related to engineering plan reviews, and that's actually an action that came before council, actually has a couple times. As I mentioned, we see some anticipated extra workload when we see our development revenues coming in higher. And as a matter of course, we bring back actions to council when they exceed a dollar amount to approve funding for consulting services to make sure we're meeting our performance standards. So included in there is a transfer that is related to our consulting engineering plan review services. We also had transfers related to grants. A number of them related to Homeland Security grants, as well as the funding from the Tohono O'odham Nation for the police department purchase of Segways, and then insurance reimbursements. I wanted to mention that we did something a little bit different on the report itself this quarter. If you recall, last time we were talking about the ability to understand what of the transfers is money that was budgeted, what is new money coming into the city, what's actually hitting the city manager contingency if applicable. And so With the help of the budget team, we've actually structured the report a little bit differently to categorize them to make it easier to understand what those transfers relate to. So in summary, it's staff's recommendation that the City Council approve the third quarter budget transfers as presented, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kim. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Could I please have a motion and a second to receive the fiscal year 2013-14 third quarter financial report and approve fiscal year 2013-2014 third quarter budget transfers? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Campbell and a second by Councilman Stipp. Open for council discussion. Councilman Stipp?
Sorry, Joe.
Sorry, Joe.
I've got two, and I have to, right up front, I got back into town, so these could very easily have been answered before, so I apologize for that now. On page 25 of the transfers, there's a transfer that's just over $100,000 for the fire marshal, but it seems to be worded, and I think it went the wrong way. Didn't the fire marshal go over to the development services? But this transfer indicates that it went back. It actually is still within development services, but within a different division. So it didn't move between departments, it was just a division within development services. Division within the Yes, division? right. Because Division the within the description department. doesn't quite say that. Okay. And then just kind of a more generic that just popped into my head while you were doing, can you go back 2 slides? Some of these key items that you mentioned came before us in a number of presentations, et cetera. Is there a procedural reason why we couldn't approve the budget transfer at the time we approved this project to save this time? Is there a reason? Anybody?
Yes.
Maybe there is a procedural one, I just...
Yeah, thank you, and actually, that's a great question. In many of these cases, you did approve it, but because of the way our system works, we just keep them on the list so that nothing gets lost in the system. And that way, we don't get a transfer put in the system that you don't approve.
Better to approve it twice than not at all?
That's correct.
Got
We
it.
try to do it when it comes up, yes.
Another one? Thank you. That's it, I'm done.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Oh, gosh. I had a chance to go over, and again, I appreciate how you break it up in categories on the budget transfer. It's much easier to read. We had a discussion on some of the descriptions, and again, I'm not going to go into detail, but I think part of it, just like what Stipp was mentioned, when we're talking about non-cash, to be a little more specific, and I gave you one example of one that I think makes it a little easier. It's, again, and I was explaining to Larry, it's occupational hazard being a, in accounting, your journal entries have very descriptive, very succinct descriptions of whatever you're doing, and that's what would be nice under description. And again, I've seen some really good ones, but we had a talk, so I'm not going to go into that. The only question I have is for Nathan on the water meter complex for the Cincinnati Reds. Just best practices, Nathan. We've had this discussion before, but as a result, what have you put in place to ensure, water meters, that we're paying for are ours and not somebody else's?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor Pizzillo. First of all, we very diligently track our known meters throughout the complex. The takeaway for us is that we are now reconfirming the service areas for each of the meters. As you might realize, the complex itself is unique, not only in its 100-plus acre size, but also in its responsibilities are divided with the Indians and the Reds and the city. And so there are different layers involved, but our takeaway is that we're reconfirming our meters and the service areas to ensure that we've captured everything going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? All right, then let's vote on this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Kim. Now we're on to the next one. The next item of the business is a public hearing to consider a proposed increase of $145,444 in the primary property tax levy and a resolution 14-1636 which adopts the final estimates by the City of Goodyear for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2014, and ending June 30th, 2015. Open public hearing. Kim, you're on again.
All right, thank you. If I could have the next presentation, please.
It's not there.
Thank goodness I didn't want to present on Taco Bell. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As mentioned, this action is related to a public hearing related to our truth in taxation, as well as the fiscal year 14-15 budget, and requesting approval of our budget for next fiscal year. In terms of my presentation this evening, I will review the budget process that we've undertaken over the last several months. I will give a high-level review of the proposed budget for fiscal year 15. I'll go into the overall sources and uses for the budget, and then review the property tax elements, and specifically the truth in taxation amount, and then finally request approval of the budget for next fiscal year. So displayed on this slide is our process that we've undertaken over the last several months that you can see began back in November with the City Council retreat on really getting direction on the priorities, the focus areas, reaffirming our strategic action plan priorities and focus, strategic focus areas, and then also reviewing our existing budget policies and tax structure to give us the foundation that we needed to move forward and as a staff prepare and evaluate budget recommendations that have been discussed with you, as you can see, numerous times throughout the past 7 months. We also want to recognize that this slide also doesn't reflect all the topical presentations that you received on specific items, and also namely our infrastructure improvement plan, which is incorporated into the budget that will be presented this evening, which ran a parallel and similarly almost as complex a process. I want to say that we really appreciate the open dialogue with the council throughout this process, and also the teamwork on the part of the staff to get us to this point. As you may recall, we went through several presentations that really dissected each segment of the budget, and through those dialogues we were able to bring forward the budget that we are proud to present to you this evening. One other note that I want to make before we leave this slide is the amount of public outreach that we've done throughout this process. We've taken a little bit different approach. We do have the public meetings. These meetings are video broadcast both live and archived on our city website. We really enhanced the information on our Transparency in Government webpage to include bullet point summaries of the information that was presented and the discussion that took place, so a little bit extra beyond just the meeting minutes. Also used our social media outlets to communicate that. We did host a public budget forum this year. We've done that similarly in the past years. But again, using the social media and our Hot Topics e-notify to make sure that folks knew of the opportunities that they had to engage with us to give feedback on the budget as it developed throughout these several months. We also had a feedback form that went live on our website back in January, and that was continually linked to all the information that we were providing. And we also went through all the required publication and above and beyond to include press releases, but all our state budget schedules, having them on file, taking them over to the library, posting that there. So everybody was aware of all the public hearings and information that was being presented as part of this process. So in terms of an overview of our budget, it is fiscally sound and structurally balanced. All of our ongoing expenditures are supported by ongoing revenues. It is based on the tax policy and budget policies that we do have in place today. We do not make changes to those, and those are also affirmed as part of the budget adoption process. It does include our 3-month contingency reserve level. That's the 16.3, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Our total proposed budget is $222 million. Of that, the operating portion is $92 million, and our capital improvement plan for new projects for fiscal year 15 is just about $28 million. And I will go into detail covering those segments throughout the presentation. This budget does maintain a focus on our strategic priorities, which are listed here. That carries throughout our strategic action plan, which was just updated and adopted this evening, and we've worked on in parallel through the budget process. And also has been linked to all the conversations that we've had in terms of the capital improvement plan, recommended supplementals, making sure that we maintain a focus on our key results. That also linked to our new priority-based budgeting initiative. So when we brought forward supplementals, information regarding the quartile results were provided with that information as well. All kind of designed to keep our eye on the prize, if you will. So the fiscal year 14-15 budget highlights some of the key initiatives. It does maintain the core services that we provide today and even enhances level of service in some cases, all with our goal in mind of making sure that we maintain that high level of citizen satisfaction that we just heard in our citizen survey. One of the key initiatives in the budget this year was making sure that we're maintaining and preserving our assets that we have today. And in terms of assets, I mean infrastructure and equipment that we have. So we are undertaking an asset management inventory right now to get a comprehensive look at those assets that we have, when are they going to need to be replaced, and the fund that was established in this year's budget is $5 million, and that will help advance those plans as they're completed and brought forward. And it will also help provide us some perspective in terms of is that $5 million, how far is that going to get us, and what considerations do we have to look at for future fiscal years as well. As I mentioned in the last presentation, we're continuing to see strong growth in the community, and so certainly supporting those growth activities and focusing on economic development are present in our budget as proposed. You'll see this a lot in our capital improvement plan through not only investment in our water, wastewater systems, some facilities in terms of a new police patrol facility, but also in some of the positions that are recommended. We had 16 new positions that are within our budget, and many of them are out in the field supporting our streets, our traffic operations, our fire inspections, our public safety, all because of the growth that we're seeing in the community. In terms of technology, we do have a very large initiative in this year's budget in our capital improvement plan, and I'll talk about that as I get there, but that's our enterprise resource planning system. So we've been working on that, and that's been an initiative of the city for actually a couple of years. And the budget as proposed allows funding for actually purchasing our new system and implementing it. We continue to invest in our employees. As you've heard stated many times, employees are our greatest asset, and they are the ones that carry out the day-to-day work every day that helps us achieve what we want to see for Goodyear. And so one of the components of the budget includes an average 3% increase for non-sworn staff. And I say average because a couple years ago we went to a quartile-based system, so employees' actual percentage of raise will be based on where they are within their pay grade. And then in terms of our sworn staff, our public safety, police and fire sworn employees, they will get a one-step increase of 5%. That's pursuant to terms of our Memorandum of Understanding. Last year in the budget, they did not get an increase with the understanding that we would be budgeting for that one-step increase this fiscal year. Public safety, investing in that. As I mentioned, we do have funding for a new phase one of a new police patrol facility, as well as 2 new officer positions and fire inspector. That's a non-sworn position. And then also in our forensic and evidence program, as I mentioned, we will be moving forward with the tenant improvements for our new police evidence facility, and one of the positions supports that program as well. And then continuing to provide the public amenities, the parks, making sure that those are maintained according to our performance standards, and hosting the city events that certainly contribute to that high level of citizen satisfaction that we hear about. So getting to the numbers a little bit, this is our revenue sources, where our money is coming from. And you'll see there the total $222 million. I'll start with the taxes and surcharges portion of the pie and just kind of work my way around. That is the largest portion of our revenue at 42%. That does include our general sales tax, our property tax, those development revenues that I talked about. So that really makes up the bulk of our revenue. We do have our development impact fees that comprise 6% of our revenue source. That is associated with the IIP and the development impact fees that was just adopted last month. Proposed infrastructure revenue, that's 8% of the budget. That's actually a placeholder, that, and I'll slide to the grants, that $2.3 million. Because the budget that we adopt is a maximum budgeted amount, we need to create capacity within our budget, so if we receive new revenue, whether it's grants or a potential improvement district, which has a revenue source that comes with it, that we're able to capitalize on those opportunities as they come forward. So the proposed infrastructure and grants create that capacity for us. And as I'll talk about through the presentation, those funds are not spent unless we see revenues come in. And then lastly, enterprise fund user fees. That's the rate revenue that we receive from our water, wastewater, and sanitation. And then really lastly is our fund balance. And what comprises that is if we have balances in our development fee accounts because we're working them through our capital improvement plan, that's where we have those revenues, as well as that contingency fund and any carryovers that we have built into the budget. So on to our expenditures. Again, at a high level, the $222 million, and I will talk a little bit about some of those key segments. But just at a high level, our operations, you'll see there the largest slice of that pie at 42%, $92 million, and I will go into what makes up that $92 million momentarily. Our rainy day fund, as I mentioned, that's $16.3 million, which is per budget policies, that's 3 months level of reserves. The placeholders that I spoke about comprise 9% of the expenditure. Again, that will not be spent unless we have a corresponding revenue source. Our debt service is 12% of the total expenditures, and I will review what makes up the debt service obligations that we have. One-time budget initiatives, that relates to the replacement fund that I spoke about just a moment ago, that new initiative for this fiscal year, as well as some that we typically fund every year in terms of fleet replacement, IT reserves, risk reserves, are all within that category. And then the capital projects, that includes not only the new projects that I spoke about funded for fiscal year 15, which was just about $28 million, but also carryover for projects that were approved and received appropriation in previous years that have not yet been completed, and those funds will carry over to next fiscal year. This is a look at the detail of our operating budget. You'll see that total $92 million there. The general fund portion of that is 62.9, and I just wanted to call that out because we typically talk in terms of general fund versus other funds, and so that just puts into context what the subcomponent of general fund is there. Also, when I spoke during the last presentation, we often have one-time supplementals that come through the budget process and are recommended. $5 million of that total $92 million operating budget is one-time funding. That means it's not added to base budget for departments, but will be for specific initiatives for this fiscal year. On the breakdown of the pie chart, you'll see public safety, that is the largest portion of our operating budget at 33%. We do have the streets called out separately from engineering, even though that falls under our engineering department. That's the highway user revenue fund portion, specific to our streets program, so we do highlight that separately. Public Works is 23% of the budget. That does include all of our enterprise funds, water, wastewater, and sanitation, as well as our general fund Public Works operations of fleet and facilities maintenance. Along the bottom of the pie chart, you'll see we have 3 slices that are about 10% of the operating budget: Parks, Recreation, and Stadium. Our support services at 10%, that does include our IT department, human resources, and I knew I was going to forget it. Finance. Oh, how could I forget finance?
It's catchy. It's catchy.
General government, that includes our city manager, council budget, court, legal, and our non-departmental area as well. So as I mentioned, our capital improvement plan funded projects for fiscal year 15 is just under $28 million. And if you recall from our discussions over the last several months, we've actually been working on developing a 10-year plan. The first 10-year plan for us, we've typically done a 5-year plan. And that was done purposefully to make sure that we were aligning our plans with the infrastructure improvement plan, which is our growth-related projects and funded by development fees. So that has been incorporated. We've reviewed the 10-year plan throughout the process, but I did want to note that that is reviewed each year as part of the budget process. So we do start talking about that in terms of the retreat, what are the priorities, what did we consider previously, are those still our priorities, et cetera. And so in terms of the presentation and the budget that you're adopting this evening, the fiscal year 15 projects are those that will actually receive appropriations. So while we have the 10-year plan, only the ones in year 1 will receive actual funding. So we do have, to start with our largest piece there and work around, our water projects are at 40%. And again, that's largely related to the growth projections that we anticipate, as well as a developer-funded project that we have funding for this next fiscal year. Our streets projects at $1.7 million. Facility and technology, and I've mentioned those, that's basically 2 main projects, which is our police operations, phase 1, and the ERP program. Our parks is 7% of the capital improvement plan for next year. That does include general park improvement funding. It does include median enhancements for key areas around the city for unimproved medians. And then also the first year funding for a future recreation center. That's been budgeted for next fiscal year. We have the art projects at 1%, as previous discussions, and then wastewater at 17%. A quick look at our debt service by funding source. As I mentioned, $25.8 million. Our utilities are the largest portion of that, so that is funded by enterprise revenue, self-sustaining. Secondary property tax, that is for general obligation bond payments. That's for bonds that were previously sold. I do want to be clear that we are not proposing in the budget any new bond sales or anything like that. This is all related to previous projects and our existing obligations. The general fund portion at 26%, that pays for our Public Improvement Corporation bond payments related to the ballpark project. And then the Improvement District assessment, that's $3.5 million. That does have a corresponding revenue source as we receive payments from the landowner within that improvement district. But because it is an obligation of the city, we show it here. So now to the property tax portion of the presentation. Shown here is just a historical look at our assessed valuation, which is really kind of the foundation for the property tax process in the city. So you'll see in fiscal year 09 is when we had our highest valuation back at $1 billion. And then, of course, we started to experience the Great Recession. You'll see that fiscal year 11 is the year where we really saw that impact our actual assessed valuation in the city, and that's typical to see that 2-year lag time frame. Our lowest valuation was actually last fiscal year, $590 million. And this year we saw our first increase in assessed valuation since the recession hit, almost $660 million. That was about an 11% increase that we saw this year. This is a breakdown of the property tax levy, which is really the amount of revenue that the city collects based on property taxes. And how I've broken it down on here is primary and secondary, and then also relating it to the budget policies that are adopted by the city. Our primary levy, or our primary revenue that we collect, goes to support our general fund operations, and that amount for fiscal year 15 is $7.4 million. You'll see that the policy correlation there is that we are permitted to have a 2% maximum increase That is a policy direction from the council that we will continue to maintain that. What we've done is broken down that about $418,000 increase to show the truth in taxation amount, which is one of the considerations for council this evening, and then also the amount attributable to new growth. So that $145,444 is that truth in taxation, that true 2% amount. And we break that out because that is the impact on the increase, that 2% increase to existing property owners. The remainder of that increase, that $273,000, is attributable to new growth that has come into the community. So that's the reason and the importance of that separation there. And then the secondary property tax levy, $4.5 million, that does pay for the general fund obligations that we have outstanding, which I just reviewed. We do have a policy where we will have a floating rate, and I'll talk a little bit about rate on the next slide, but that we will have a floating rate which allows us to collect the amount of revenue that we need to cover our obligations. And as I mentioned, we are not changing those obligations with this proposed budget. They are as they exist today. So this is where the actual rate comes into play, and you'll see we have some historical information, and specifically for fiscal year 14, our current rate is $1.90 per $100 of assessed valuation. And the reason that the rate is important is because once we establish our overall levy, the rate is used to calculate how much each individual property owner will pay based on the value of their property. So with the 11.9 levy for fiscal year 15, our rate, the calculation actually went down, so our rate is $1.87. We did look at what the impact to the median home value in the city would be in terms of impact. It's about a $38 increase per year. And then we also calculated what that average cost would be per year in total for the city portion of property taxes, which is $266 per year. So the recommendations this evening are that council approve the truth in taxation increase of $145,444 and also adopt Resolution 14-1636 for the final budget for fiscal year 14-15. In terms of next steps, we do have one more council action related to the budget. That is the adoption of the total property tax levy on July 7th. Tonight is the truth in taxation amount, and then the action on July 7th would be to approve the total levy itself. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kim. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Yes? Would you come forth, please, and tell us your name and address?
I'm Bob Farrow. I live in Pebble Creek. I just heard that the assessed values went up 11% this year, and now I'm hearing another 2% on top of that, or am I hearing wrong?
Kim, would you like to address that?
Yes, thank you. Let me clarify. The overall assessed valuation for the city as established by the assessor's office is what went up 11%. The 2% is the individual increase in the primary property tax for existing property owners. So it's within that total amount. So it's not in addition to. The 11% is just the overall valuation of the total property in the city. If that Okay, yeah. helps.
That's both new and existing, so that's new as well, that 11%.
Well, I just see the assessment going up. So the city, if the 2% isn't approved, we're still going to pay more property tax, correct? So
No.
won't
Can I-
the city of Goodyear have more revenue?
Yeah, Mr. Farrell, let me have our finance director, just stay right up here and let him address that for you, all right?
Yeah, the concept on the truth in taxation affects the primary half of our levy. The concept of it is that even when your assessed valuation goes up by 11%, you can only increase the levy by 2%.
So it actually protects the levy at that level. So what happens is if you were paying $100 last year and your value went up 11%, on the truth and taxation portion, the most you could pay is $102
Okay,
for the primary. And that's state law.
okay, thank you. And one last thing, I've been watching the city of Phoenix, how they're getting into financial problems, even though everything's recovering, because there's a lot of programs out there, like pension spiking. I don't know if Goodyear allows that. It's just something for you guys to look at.
No, as long as you've addressed that, could we have somebody come up and just talk about that?
I'll address it as the pension board chairman.
All right.
Yeah.
You have the floor, Councilman Stipp.
The pension system that the city of Phoenix has is their own pension system.
Right.
So they're in control of their own destiny, if you will. The pension system that the city of Goodyear belongs to is the public safety retirement system, which is governed by state statutes. So the current state statutes do not permit pension spiking in the form that the city of Phoenix allows within its charter. So there's a built-in protection for the cities already. The current status and the health of our contribution into that pension system is monitored every year. As a matter of fact, it even is a dedicated page, and I can't give you the page number, and I don't think Larry can either, but it's in our comprehensive annual financial report as well, that both the city looks at it as well as our auditing firm to make sure that those numbers remain strong as well. So we're not getting into this upside-down scenario that the city of Phoenix currently is experiencing.
Is there anything we could add to that from the staff that would make this a little more, add to Bill's, good explanation, Bill, I'm not taking away from that. So this is our,
Lynette Reed, Deputy City Manager, and I think you stated it very well. In Phoenix, they also allow your vacation and sick leave as part of that spiking, and where we do allow vacation to be cashed out, it isn't included in the hours worked. So the employees do receive that as part of their benefit when they leave, but it isn't counted as hours worked to go towards the pension.
Okay.
So it's calculated very differently.
Okay, because I've seen the city of Phoenix, I've also seen the U.S. military, they're in the same problem.
yes.
So they're making war very expensive, so maybe that's a good thing.
But Mr. Farrell, I don't blame your anxiety and when you read that, because every time it hits the paper, I come back into the city staff and I say, okay, are you sure we're not in that, we're never going to be? So I have that same anxiety when you read it in the paper. So, but they assure me each time I come in what the process is. So it's a protection for the citizen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for coming up. Okay, anybody else in the audience? Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing then. And now could I please have a motion and a second to approve truth and taxation increase of $145,444 for FY 14-15. Motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Stipp and a second by Councilman Osborne. Open for council discussion. Vice Mayor, I'm going to call on you first this time.
Probably for Larry. Larry, the question on that 5% max on the assessed valuation, that is not this budget year, is that correct? It starts next year?
That's correct. The 5% limit on that goes into effect with Prop 117 next budget year.
Now, will that, right now, you have what, the limited cash value and the full cash value, correct? Which one is the primary on?
The primary is on the limited cash value.
Okay.
And that is what both primary and secondary will be on in the future.
In the future. So in the future, those two will exactly match up. But for this time, if somebody wanted to calculate, the limited would be the primary, and the full would be the secondary. But next fiscal year, as a result of that 5% max, they will both be at the same, correct?
That is correct.
All right, and just a general comment. First of all, I just want to say thank you for staff. This process of getting to this point, again, when you see some of the questions asked tonight, we've seen this. We've seen this before. It's been going on for months. Staff has been very thorough walking us through this process. There's been a lot of discussions dealing with this budget, and I want to thank staff and everybody who had any hands in putting this together. It was easy to follow, and again, tip of the hat to you on that. The only thing I wanted to make a comment on was on the property tax. If you notice on the primary, when you pull that up, that 2/3 of the increase is new growth. You know, so when you hear those totals out there on the assessed valuation growing, and I think Larry did a good job of explaining that, a lot of that is new growth coming in, which is good because we're nowhere close to where we were, I guess, in '09. But again, thank you. Again, what you're hearing tonight is not new to a lot of us up here, but it was a lot of hard work since, what, January, when we started this process? So again, thank you.
November.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Loretano?
And maybe Larry can address this too, because I think it's really important that a lot of times we hear the 2%, but when you see your bill, there's actually, the taxes have gone up more than that because it's not all for the city. So I think that's really important to get that message out, that there's other things on that bill that have raised it. Our percent is 2%.
I agree with you. Larry, can you address that?
Yeah, the property tax rates that the city of Goodyear have right now is $1.90. Let's just round it for this discussion at $2. The total property tax rates paid on individual houses, depending on where you are, what districts you're part of and so forth, range from about $12 to $15. So the city's portion would be anywhere from 17% down to somewhere probably about 12% of the total property tax bill.
Thank you. Bill?
Larry? And maybe, and I know Kim can answer this question, but from Mr. Farrell's, I think concern about what's happening with the property tax, our property tax rate, because of our adoption of the floating rate concept, hit its max last year at $1.90. This upcoming year that we're going to be voting on is $1.86. And then the subsequent years following, that rate will continue to drop as the levy, as we seek to remain in that. Is that?
And what year, we have actually designated a year, that'd be $1.60.
I think it's 19, we're back to $1.60.
I can't remember the exact year. It's $1.87 is what tonight's action is proposing. Next year's, we're expecting it to be $1.87 again. The reason for that is what Vice Mayor Pizzillo talked about. As they bring the secondary and the limited valuations together, the secondary drops. And so we are projecting that the rate will remain the same for that year and then start dropping. And I believe, Mayor, you're reasonably correct to say about fiscal year 19 is when it will get down to $1.60.
Vice Mayor?
Just interim budget manager corrected me, and it's 18.
18, all right.
Oh, that must have been since
That's
Kim
better
came on
yet,
board.
thank you. Vice Mayor?
The other piece that's missing, and again, is as a result of our state legislature, we're bringing down the assessed valuation of commercial, which at one time was what, 20, was it 25?
Quite a few years ago, it was 25. It's been dropping. It went down to 20 for a while. I believe for next year's budget, it's at 19.
But that's not going away, it just moves
But
to
what
residential.
But what it's doing is it's shifting.
So it's shifting to residential.
It's shifting the burden
Okay.
from commercial to residential as a result of that assessed value for the commercial coming down. It's got to be made up somewhere, so the residential is carrying that burden. Is that an accurate statement?
That is correct. Yeah.
Just one question. With our financial policies, one of the, if I am remembering correctly, the good policy that we have is that we won't even allow our city to take on further debt until we get to the 1.6%. Is that not correct? Or somewhere, is that?
Yes, I'll word it slightly different,
Okay,
but you've
thank
got
you.
the concept very
Okay.
correct. Our budget policy says we cannot issue debt unless the debt service, after we issue that debt, will have a rate of $1.60 or less. We're at $1.87 now. We have to drop quite a ways before that can happen.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for coming up, Larry. All right, that's roll call vote time.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you, Kim. Again, great presentation. Yeah, I think we all answered the questions. There was no more questions? Yeah, okay, we're fine.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but we're going to now go to that part, right? If you just give me a moment, I do know that.
I think that's why she was standing there.
Yeah, no, but I will now recess the regular meeting. We'll convene to a special meeting per ARS 42-17-105 to determine and adopt estimates of proposed expenditures for the purpose stated in the published proposal. Okay, call to order. The special meeting, we're all present. We will now consider adopting a resolution for the final budget. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right, will the city clerk please read Resolution 14-1636 by title only?
Adopt Resolution 14-1636, determining and adopting the final estimates of proposed expenditures by the City of Goodyear for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2014, and ending June 30th, 2015.
Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Campbell and a second by Councilman Stipp. Open for council discussion. Yes, Vice Mayor Pizzillo.
Just a general comment. I remember back in '09, first vote on the budget, we had a balanced budget, but we had, I think it was a $13.2 million structural deficit. I know we've had presentations in the past, but correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding we currently have a $2.8 million structural surplus built into this budget, in which $2 million of it is setting aside for our stadium principal that comes due in, was it 19? Is it 19 it becomes due? Which, as a result of some court case recently, is probably a good strategy in case that doesn't quite work out the way we would like. And the $800,000 is a buffer in case for unforeseen things out there. So, again, I appreciate staff's effort to get us to that point, because in similar from 9 to, what's this, 13? 14 budget, I mean, you've gone from 13.2 structural to, a structural surplus, and to deal with the principal when it kicks in for the ballpark. So, again, I think that's good financial policies, that's a good strategy, and again, I appreciate the efforts for us to get to that point. Thank you.
Yes, somebody else? Well, I want to thank you, too. Again, I didn't get to talk about how great it is that we've had so many presentations. I mean, I counted 11 here, and then you reiterated we had even more than that. And each of those are open to the public. So I don't know how anymore to get it to the public than what we're doing now. We're very transparent about it, and we do publish it. And so, and under your leadership, it's been, with presentation, it's been very understandable for us and for the listening public. And so I can't thank you enough for that, because it certainly has, Larry, that certainly changed from 2005 when I became a member of this council, and it's just great. So, okay, I guess we're ready for a vote, so roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
And Larry, I know as finance director, you'd like to say a few words, so you have the microphone.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I won't take much of your time as we've got a busy schedule this evening. But first of all, I want to congratulate the 7 of you on completing this budget process. It started in November. I don't know that anyone truly appreciates the time that each of you have put into this budget. Also, I do want to also start my comments by thanking the city manager, the 2 deputies, the budget analysts, all 3 of them are in the room this evening, and the department directors, because I agree with some of the comments that a few of you made just a little bit earlier about it. And I have to say, in my 25 years of doing this, this has probably been the easiest budget that I've had to deal with. As far as going through. Not necessarily the least time spent, but one of the easiest budgets to go through because of a number of things. And I wanted to just talk a little bit. About 6 months ago, we ended up with a budget manager position that was open. And as at that time, as you're starting a budget process, that's our busiest time in the budget office. To move that workload down to existing people is not practical. Didn't really want to start the hiring process quite that quick, but even more importantly, we wanted to start the process of changing direction in how we do the budget a little bit into some of the things that you've just talked about. And so I focused on one area, and that was to ask or to try to convince Kim and the city manager, Brian, to allow me to borrow Kim for 6 months to get us through the budget process. I felt that Kim would be the right person to get us through to help move us forward on a number of the things, including quality of the presentations, including material being received ahead of time so you actually get a chance to look at it ahead of time. Not just for you, but for our directors. That's something I heard a lot of from them, that they needed to see things. They wanted to see what you were getting before you got it in case they were going to get asked a question. And so with all of that, Kim and Brian agreed to that. And I have to say that Kim far exceeded my expectations. She just did a phenomenal job getting it through. You've heard tonight, I'm not going to go through the accomplishments because you've mentioned them. I think all of us know what they are. But I felt it was appropriate for me at this point in time in my position to acknowledge Kim for what she's doing, just to thank her publicly. I have thanked her privately, but we're moving on. We are in the process of hiring a budget manager, and I'll have to say that she raised the bar considerably as we're going through this process. But I appreciate you giving me a few minutes that I could say a big thank you to Kim.
Well, thank you. I'd like us, before we finish this, to applaud on that one, all right? All right, then, so there's no further business to consider. I will now adjourn the special meeting, and we will now reconvene a regular meeting. And I'm thinking the city clerk, there's people that want to take a break now, so,
Yes, Mayor, you
okay.
can do that.
So let's take a 10-minute break, does that work? All right.
And she was out of town, so Joe.
Next item on the business is a public hearing to consider use permit for the Taco Bell drive-through restaurant. Opening the public hearing, Steve Carreccia will present. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This use permit is for the existing Taco Bell that right across from City Hall. That building was built in 1981. When the applicant came in to discuss with us their plans, they did plan to demolish the building. In talking with the applicant, we could not find a record of a prior approved use permit for the drive-through restaurant. The applicant could have continued with that existing building as a grandfathered use. They could have used that drive-through restaurant. But since they did want to demolish the entire building, it did trigger the site to come into compliance with the zoning ordinance. So the use permit is required now for the new drive-through restaurant. And this is the site plan. It basically mirrors the existing building. The drive-through lane does come around same configuration as before, come out here into the main drive aisle. The building architecture will be substantially different. This is a new concept proposed by Taco Bell. And this is just a conceptual landscape plan. The applicant will be adding additional landscaping and a 3-foot screen wall here along Litchfield Road. Notice for these public hearings was conducted as required by our zoning code. To date, staff has not received any comment in terms of our citizen review or at the P&Z, the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. We do find it is compatible with the center. It has been in operation for several years, and we are recommending approval subject to the 2 stipulations. With that, Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Staff and the applicant are here for questions.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion, please, and a second to approve a request for a use permit for a convenience use Taco Bell drive-through restaurant at 251 North Litchfield Road, located at the southeast corner of Van Buren Street and Litchfield Road, subject to stipulations. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Holman and a second by Councilman Campbell. Open for council.
I moved and she seconded.
Oh, so
Sorry,
I got
Mayor.
that one.
Excuse us.
All right, a motion by
Campbell.
Campbell and a second by Osborne, Councilman Osborne. Jeez, it's not getting easier.
Sorry.
Open for council discussion.
I do have a question.
So do I.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You go ahead first.
I thought I understood, but I didn't understand that, because right now they can come in 2 ways into the drive-through, that was not going to be permitted any longer, or that the way they were designing it, that wouldn't happen anymore. But I don't see that.
Can you go back one
Picture.
slide, or 2 slides, please? One more. Another. Is that the drive-through?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, there they are. Coming in and coming out.
So will you show her on that?
Well, there were 2 ways they could come in to coming in. Are they still going to be able to do that? That parking lot was just dangerous, the way people drove through it to get to the Taco Bell drive-through.
Mayor, council members, this is one change that, with this new design, it will be just one single point here.
Okay.
And it does remove that conflict of they had parking, the trash enclosure, and 2 points of access to the drive-through lane. That's all cleaned up with this.
Okay, I don't think it shows that well on that picture. Thank you. I just wondered how they were going to accomplish that, because it was really, I lived it for 25 years, so.
Okay, so my question is that you said subject to 2 stipulations, so is one stipulation that it's a one driveway, or what's the stipulations? I couldn't find that anywhere.
Mayor, council members, basically the 2 stipulations, 2A and B. 2A is basically compliance with all city codes and regulations.
I'm sorry, tell me again?
2A is basically compliance with all city codes, development standards.
Okay.
And 2B is compliance when the site plan comes in with these plans submitted with this use permit. So the site plan will need to mirror this conceptual site plan here.
Okay, and the reason why this is coming before us is because they want to demolish the current building and have a drive-through, and in doing so, in permitting through the city, you found that there was no permit to have a drive-through.
No.
Is that right?
Go ahead.
Mayor, council members, basically that is correct. There was no prior approved use permit. They
Okay.
could have kept going with the grandfather with the existing building, but because they want to tear it down and build a brand-new building, that goes beyond reasonable repair and alterations that allowed on a grandfathered use.
So we have to start all over.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm delighted they want to tear it down and put a new building in, because I think it will really enhance that shopping center and update it. And I've been there many times, and I can't wait to see the new building. How long is it going to take, do we know?
Mayor, Council, that I do not know. Maybe the applicant can come up and answer that question.
I just wondered, I'm sorry.
Is he in the audience? All right. Thank you for coming forth.
It's quite all right. I'm Greg Hitchens. I'm the architect. I was actually here last month. I don't think you'll see me next month. I think we got things covered with Taco Bells and Goodyear for right now. You know, once we get started construction, it's about a 90-day process. The one that you approved last month is probably going to start in August. So September will be done in November, and this one's maybe a month or two behind that. So the next 6 months, have 2 new ones in town.
Wonderful.
If all goes well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have to agree, I think it's a great design. It is going to improve the look.
Thank you very much. We're excited
We
to have it
appreciate
here.
it.
We are too.
Great, thank you. Anything else? All right, let's vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes, all opposed, the ayes have it. All right, let's go on to 7.5, is a public hearing to consider adopting proposed water rates effective January 1st, 2015. Public hearing opening. Larry, to present?
Actually, thank you, Mayor. I will keep my comments very brief. I would once again like to introduce you to Dan Jackson from economist.com. Dan will be doing the presentation this evening. You first saw a presentation from Dan on the water rate study back in March of 2017. He's going to be reviewing that information a little bit since it is a public hearing, but it is similar information to what I think he went over at that point in time. Dan's a project manager with economist.com for this rate study and has 28 years of experience in financial consulting for water and wastewater utilities throughout the U.S. and the Pacific regions. So, Dan?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. It's a privilege to be here before you tonight to talk about an issue that is really a very difficult issue for a lot of cities here in Arizona, and that is the issue of how to address the increasing cost of water and wastewater service, not only here in Arizona, but across the United States. I think that we as Americans have long been very blessed by the fact that we have had access to a service that we literally can't live without, water and wastewater service, at a remarkably low cost. Well, a lot of factors are converging in the 21st century that are causing water and wastewater costs to go up. These factors are really affecting everybody. They're affecting cities all throughout the United States, and particularly here in Arizona. As Mr. Lang indicated, we were hired in late 2013 to do a comprehensive water and wastewater rate study and financial plan for the city. We've completed the first phase of this engagement, and we're going to be presenting to you our recommendations for a water and wastewater rate for the fiscal year upcoming, the fiscal year 2015. At the same time, we recognize and have addressed the fact that there are many outstanding issues in the water and wastewater fund that have yet to be resolved. When you do a long-term financial plan, the decisions that you make, that both staff and council makes with regards to how to fund certain projects, are going to significantly impact your long-term water and wastewater rate plan. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be addressing the immediate needs tonight with regards to the 2015 rate, while we're going to defer discussion of the long-term plan to a later date. I want to, how do I do this?
Somebody want
I'm
to
an Apple guy, I'm not a Windows guy, so I can't figure this out. This down arrow? Okay. All right. I always use that excuse. I want to begin this presentation by talking a little bit about why water and wastewater rates are increasing, because that's the very first question most people ask whenever they talk about a water and wastewater rate adjustment, and that question is why? Why should water cost any more today than it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago? Well, one of the reasons why water and wastewater rates are going up is just due to inflation. The cost of everything goes up by about 3% a year. And remember, you try to run your water and wastewater operation like a business. You want the revenues from your rates to cover all the costs of providing that service. And so, when inflation pushes costs up, you have no choice but to pass those costs through to all of your ratepayers. A second reason is that a lot of the factors that go into the water and wastewater service, like chemicals, electricity, insurance, workers' comp, all of those are going up at rates even greater than inflation. A third reason why water and wastewater costs are going up is due to the need for cities like Goodyear to invest in capital improvement plans to repair and replace your water and wastewater infrastructure. It costs a lot of money to build a water and wastewater system, to lay those lines in the ground, to build those treatment plants, to build those pump stations. And like any asset, those wear out over time. You have to continually invest in the system to enable you to continue to provide the superior quality of water and wastewater service that your ratepayers are used to. And finally, this is particularly true in Arizona, the cost of acquiring new water resources is going up significantly and is going to continue to go up in the 21st century. We have to recognize that the cost of acquiring water is going to be a lot more in the future than it has been in the past. And so the question becomes, do you want expensive water or no water? So, what's happening around the rest of the country? Well, the average water and wastewater utility has been addressing these issues by increasing their rates about 5 to 6% every year, and this trend is expected to continue. As a matter of fact, the American Water Works Association expects that water and wastewater rates will triple in the next 15 years. So, other cities around the country recognize and are addressing the same problem. However, many utilities have chosen to take an approach where they just sort of try to deny that the problem is existing. 30 to 40% of utilities in the United States are right now charging rates that don't cover their costs. What that means is that while a neighboring city may have a rate that's lower than yours, they may be using their general fund to subsidize their water and sewer fund. And so their rates might be lower, but their taxes are underwriting part of the cost. You haven't had that situation. Your water and wastewater rates have been covering your costs. So the bottom line is that water and wastewater service is simply going to be more expensive for everybody. This chart shows that over the last 15 years, the average residential water and wastewater rate has gone up by 5.19%, which is about 250% greater than the inflation rate of 2.5%. Now, the city of Goodyear has not just been standing idly by while these costs have gone up. You have been taking some very aggressive steps to limit these cost increases. How have you reacted to it? What have you done? Well, the city has always very carefully scrutinized your budgets. You've looked at your staffing levels, your expense levels very, very carefully. You recognize that costs are going up, and you're doing everything in your power to try to minimize those cost increases on your ratepayers. You've been re-engineering and you've been prioritizing your capital improvement plans. You've been delaying some staffing decisions. You haven't been funding certain projects unless they're absolutely necessary. And for those reasons, you've been able to defer your last rate adjustment. Your last rate adjustment was in January of 2013. Now, it's been an admirable effort on the part of the city, but these measures alone cannot offset all of these cost increases. Sooner or later, you're going to have to implement a set of measured rate adjustments in order to ensure that you will continue to maintain a degree of financial health in your utility. And that's the purpose of tonight's rate recommendations. Okay, what are your current rates? What do people pay for water and sewer service here in the city of Goodyear? Well, if you're a residential ratepayer and you have a 3/4-inch meter, and the vast majority of residential ratepayers have 3/4-inch meters, you pay a base charge of $10.23 a month. You then pay a charge per 1,000 gallons of water use. The more you use, the more you pay. This is called an inverted block rate structure. If you use between 0 and 6,000 gallons, you pay $1.18. If you use between 6 and 12,000, it goes up to $2.36. Between 12 and 30,000, the rate goes to $3.54 per 1,000 gallons, and above 30,000 gallons, it goes to $5.69. The idea behind this rate structure is that it encourages conservation by providing a financial penalty for greater and greater water use. At the same time, it recognizes the fact that certain low-income and fixed-income people who tend to use only a minimal amount of water, they pay the lowest rate for water and wastewater service. On the wastewater side, a residential ratepayer pays a base charge of $21.12. They pay a higher charge if they have a larger meter, but the vast majority of ratepayers have 3/4-inch meters. And on the wastewater side, you pay a strict volume rate of $5.78 per 1,000 gallons. Now, for your non-residential ratepayers, they pay the same minimum charges for water and wastewater service. However, the volume charges are slightly different for your non-residential customers. A commercial and school customer pays $3 per 1,000 for 0 to 40,000 gallons. They then pay $4.80 for between 40 and 100,000 gallons, and $6.24 above 100,000 gallons. Irrigation rate payers also pay a separate rate. The volumetric rate on the wastewater side is still $5.78. Okay, what does all this mean? What do people actually pay a month for water and sewer service? Well, the average residential ratepayer uses about 7,000 to 8,000 gallons of water service a month. So if they use 7,000 gallons of water and 5,000 gallons of wastewater, which once again is a very standard or very typical usage level for a residential customer, here in the city of Goodyear, they pay $69.69 for that amount of usage. Now, this chart here compares your usage to other cities in the valley and around the state of Arizona. As you can see, your rates are right about kind of where you'd expect them to be. You're a little higher than some cities, and you're lower than others. You are about $1 below the state average. The state average is $70.67. You're also lower than some of your immediate neighbors, like Buckeye, Global, who serves as part of Buckeye, Epcor. Cities like Prescott have higher rates. Queen Creek has rates about the same as yours. And some other cities have slightly lower rates. Phoenix has a lower rate, Avondale, Surprise, Glendale, they have lower rates. But I'll tell you one thing about a lot of these cities. Almost every one of them is actively exploring the concept of adjusting their water and wastewater rates. I know that because Economist.com does the water and wastewater rate consulting for a number of these cities. Our phone's been ringing off the hook lately because a lot of other cities are facing the same issues that you are right now. The bottom line is your rates are about where you'd expect them to be, and they are certainly not out of proportion to other cities here in the valley. Okay, a little bit of brief background on your water and wastewater system. You have about 15,400 water accounts and about 15,000 wastewater accounts. To no great surprise, the vast majority of them are residential. As you can see, 14,483 of your 15,426 customers are residential, and you've got a smattering of non-residential accounts as well. Okay, when you do a long-term financial plan, one of the key components is not just to see where your costs are today, but where you think they're going to go tomorrow. And so you have to design a set of rates that's going to be able to recover costs in the future as well as in the present. Well, you make a couple of assumptions about where you think your costs are going. In the first place, we are making the assumption in our models and in our recommendations that most water and wastewater operating costs are going to go up at about 3% a year because inflation rate is going to continue and certain cost increases are going to go up. But at the same time, you have to recognize that many of the costs of a water and sewer system are going to go up at rates higher than inflation. Our long-term model looks at that as well. Now, what is fairly unique about the city of Goodyear is that you have other things that you are looking at with regards to your long-term financial planning that you have to evaluate and make certain decisions on before you can really develop a long-term financial plan. That's the reason why we are recommending to you tonight that you do this intermediate rate adjustment and defer decision on a long-term rate plan until a later date. What are some of the additional issues that you need to address? These are issues that will impact the water and wastewater cost of service in the future. One is your cap water costs. The Central Arizona project water costs are going to be one of the most significant impacts on your long-term water and wastewater service costs. In other words, the cost of acquiring new water resources in the future. How you choose to fund that is going to be a key component of what your future rates are going to be. Another key component is going to be what you term budget supplementals. Your system is continuing to grow. You're adding new accounts each year. As you add new accounts, you're going to have to add additional personnel. You're going to have to add additional expenditures, equipment, all of that kind of thing. These supplementals, how they are funded, are going to impact your long-term financial plan as well. And a third thing that's going to impact your long-term financial plan is your capital improvements. The preliminary estimate is that you're looking at as much as $55 million in water capital improvements over the next decade and about $7 million in wastewater capital improvements. You will be undertaking a comprehensive review of your water and wastewater capital improvements, but ultimately the money you invest in this system is going to be critical in establishing your long-term water and wastewater rates. This is the trend of your water and wastewater service costs over the next decade. This bar chart is a projection of your total water and wastewater cost of service for each of the next 10 years. As you can see, it's going in one direction, up. So, with all the challenges you're facing, you have to recognize the fact that costs are going to be greater tomorrow than they are today, and this gives you the opportunity to start planning for it in a way that minimizes the impact on your ratepayers. So, what we're proposing for you to do tonight is to make an adjustment to your water rates that will increase your revenues by approximately $1 million in fiscal year 2015. This will enable you to fund the known fiscal year 2015 budget increases. Now, the entire additional $1 million is not just going to come from a rate increase. Part of your revenue increase is going to come from the fact that you're continuing to add accounts. New customers means new monthly bills. So a portion of it will come from growth. The rest of it will come from a water rate adjustment. It is important to note that in the recommendations we're providing you tonight, we are recommending no change to your wastewater rates. So the only impact will be on your water rates. What this means is that the overall impact on monthly usage will vary based on the amount of usage each person has. Many times people really try to summarize a water and wastewater rate plan in one number. Is it a 3% rate increase? Is it a 2% increase? Is it a 10% increase? It's kind of hard to do that because it's really going to impact different people in different ways. I'm first going to show you the rate plan itself that we're recommending, and then I'll show you the impact on average ratepayers. We recommend the following, that effective January of 2015, you adjust your base charge from $10.23 to $11.24, right about $1. And as you can see, if you have a larger meter than 3/4 inch, you'd have a nominally bigger increase on the monthly minimum charge. For residential ratepayers, we would recommend taking your bottom block from $1.18 to $1.30, your second block from $2.36 to $2.59, your third block from $3.54 to $3.89, and your fourth block from $5.69 to $6.25. For your non-residential ratepayers, we would recommend adjusting the bottom block for your commercial and school customers from $3 to $3.30, your second block from $4.80 to $5.28, and your third block from $6.24 to $6.86. For your irrigation users, we would recommend taking your rate from $4.50 to $4.95, and for 80,000 gallons and above, from $5.18 to $5.69. Now, what does this mean in terms of how much people would pay each month? Well, if you are a residential ratepayer and you use 5,000 gallons a month of water and service and 5,000 gallons of wastewater service, right now you pay $66.15. Under this plan, that rate would go to $67.76, or an increase of $1.61. If you're a residential ratepayer who uses 7,000 gallons a month and 5,000 gallons of wastewater, right now you pay $69.69, and under this plan that would go up by $1.96 a month. Now, the average residential ratepayer in the city of Goodyear uses about 7,000 gallons a month. What that means under the law of averages, is about 60 to 70% of monthly bills in the city of Goodyear are 7,000 gallons or less. So for the vast majority of ratepayers, they would see an increase under this proposal of $2 a month or less. Now, of course, if you use more water, and people do use more water, if you use 15,000 gallons a month, your rate would go up by about $4 a month, from $92.11 to $96.27. So, from a percentage standpoint, most ratepayers would see their rate go up 2.4 to 2.8%. The reason is that you're seeing a water rate adjustment, but you're not seeing a wastewater adjustment. So while your water rates are going up at a higher percentage, your wastewater rates stay flat. So most people pay a water and a wastewater bill, so what they care about is what's the bottom line. And the bottom line is about a 2.4 to 2.8% increase for most ratepayers. Now, if you're a non-residential ratepayer, and you use 25,000 gallons of water and 20,000 gallons of wastewater because you're charged on 80% of your water usage, your bill would go up by about $11 a month, from $305 to $316. And of course, if you use greater amounts, your bill would go up a little bit more accordingly. I want to summarize this presentation as follows. We all recognize that it's never an easy thing to do to ask people to pay more for any service at any time for any reason. But we have to face a couple of very difficult realities about life in the 21st century. The first reality is that water and wastewater rates are going up throughout the United States. And they're going up for reasons that, for the most part, are really beyond the ability of a utility to control. You've got no control over the rate of inflation, and you've got no control over the supply of water. And you've got no control over the fact that your system ages and has to be repaired. And so a lot of the reasons why costs are going up are not due to poor management or the funds that are spent that shouldn't be spent. They're due to reasons beyond your control. The rate adjustment that we're proposing that you adopt tonight is necessary to enable the utility to continue to recover enough revenue to fund your operating expenses and debt service. You run a very sound city here financially. Stay the course. Keep it up and continue to maintain a solid and healthy fund balance. The majority of residential ratepayers would experience an increase of less than $2 a month. There I go. I said you don't like to summarize presentations like this in terms of one number. Well, I guess I just did. It really is the fact that most ratepayers would see an increase of less than $2 a month. And finally, this is the first step of a long-term plan. Fortunately or unfortunately, you'll probably see me again here next year talking about future rate adjustments. But and this will happen after you evaluate your long-term budget and your capital improvement plan in 2015. Thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to talk to you before you tonight, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Would the city clerk please read Resolution 14-1645 by title only?
Adopt Resolution 14-1645, adopting the proposed water rates and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Holman and a second by Councilman Campbell. Open for council discussion. Council? Vice Mayor Pizzolo?
General question, I don't know if it's for Mark or for you. When it comes with our long-range planning, I know for our assured water supply and some of the other capital projects that are coming down the road, I assume this is just the first step, and as you work on your long-range plans for the water we're going to need to meet our future needs, we're going to be seeing other stuff coming back before us, or other possible rate increases coming back?
Absolutely. And I think what I want to point out here, we've talked about previously, but real clear on this, we are in the process of taking applications for a committee that is going to be reviewing the water usage. They will be reviewing some of these issues that Dan just talked about and providing recommendations to you and dealing with some of them. Okay. And that's part of why we're doing the intermediate rate increase to allow that process to take place.
In the mitigate a potential bump, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Dealing with things coming down the pipe.
Any other? I just want to say, I was at the conference of mayors this week in Dallas, and it's waters and wastewaters is a topic of discussion.
Were you on my flight this morning?
I was on there this morning. Were you there?
Yeah, I came in, I live in Dallas, and I came in this morning, so.
I think we left, I don't know, I had to get up at 4:15, so I think.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Plane was a little late getting in due to the storms that were there. But, so you were there. You heard that. And I can see where our capital improvement plan, we're going to have to get some different technology and upgrade it into energy saving. And there were a number of cities who received an award and over treatment plants and their water. So it piqued my interest, and I came back with lots of, I want a lot of conversation with staff on this, because I could see where some other cities were certainly a step ahead of us in their development process on that. So you're right on, and there were, I don't know, over 300 mayors there. So you know what the conversation and the chit-chat was after hours, so. Yeah, so if you have anything you want to add to that at the conference that would help our council at all.
It's just that it is an issue that many people are coming to terms with. And to their great credit, many cities are stepping up, and they are recognizing the fact that it is better to invest in the future of water supplies now, because cities can't survive without water. You can survive without a lot of things, but you can't survive without water. And we owe a legacy to our children and our grandchildren to assure that the cities that we leave them will have the same supplies that the cities that we inherited. That is going to cost more, and it is my general perception as a rate consultant that ratepayers, for the most part, understand that. And they read the papers, they read about droughts, they understand that there are 6 billion people on the planet today, there were 1 billion people 100 years ago, but we have the same amount of water. And that forces costs up. But it is our responsibility. The right decision is not always the easy one, but it is the responsible one.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
All right. We're going to 7.6 to consider adopting the 2025 general plan. Katie Wilkin to present.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is the third presentation on this topic just this month, so I will keep my remarks brief. But I did want to go through why we are recommending that you adopt the general plan tonight. First of all, this new general plan will bring us into compliance with state statute, both because our general plan is going to expire and because of the new requirements since we've hit a population threshold. Secondly, this general plan really provides a clear vision for the community that was created by the community. And I gave the whole update of all the public participation we had throughout the plan at the July 9th public hearing, but I just have to point out that we do have a general plan committee member here, Estelle Beswick, so thank her.
She's a trooper.
She wins the Rockstar General Plan Committee Award for sure for sticking with us. But really what's great about this plan too is that although it provides a clear vision, it provides flexibility and the ability to be creative in how to achieve that vision. Because what we've learned over the last 10 years is that we don't know what's coming in the next 10 years.
No, do we?
And one interesting thing I saw that at the public hearing, Chuck Watson, the chair, mentioned that Goodyear was the 6th fastest growing city, and several council members commented on that. And I just looked up exactly what that means, and I wanted to share that with you. So the recession started in December 2007, and our population was about 58,000. We're now almost at 74,000 people. So that means 16,000 people, 22% of our population, have moved to Goodyear after the recession started. And that, 22%, walk into a business in Goodyear and imagine a quarter of those people came here after the recession started. And one that really highlights the challenges we're facing today with several of the items we've had on tonight's agenda. But I really think it says something about Goodyear that during one of our most challenging times as a community, 16,000 people still decided to call Goodyear their home. And it really shows the leadership of our community, of City Council, that's made Goodyear a quality community even during these tough economic times. The other thing that this general plan does is it really aligns the general plan, the council strategic action plan, and all the other master planning efforts that have been going on, especially the transportation master plan and the parks, recreation, trails, and open space master plan. The General Plan Committee unanimously recommended that the City Council approve this plan at their meeting on March 25th. And on May 21st, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended that the City Council approve the plan. At all of the public hearings that we've had, there hasn't been anyone who's come and spoke against the plan. We've had 2 people recommend approval of the plan. And just to kind of follow up from an item that was asked about at the last meeting, if council approves the general plan tonight, it will be forwarded to the voters for ratification on November 4th, 2014. If they vote yes, it would ratify the plan. If they vote no, it would keep the current plan in place, and we would have to go back to the drawing board. So we are going to be spending time reaching out to the public. We're going to be utilizing the General Plan Committee, since they know this general plan best, to get the word out to the public, attending city events. The October in Focus is really going to highlight the general plan. We're going to be doing press releases and articles, and then there's a required publicity pamphlet, and I will follow up with you on more details about that plan. So with that, staff recommends that council adopt Resolution 14-1627, adopting the Goodyear 2025 General Plan, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
All right, would anybody in the audience like to speak? Okay, will the city clerk please read Resolution 14-1627 by title only, please?
Adopt Resolution 14-1627, adopting the City of Goodyear General Plan, Goodyear 2025 General Plan, and submitting the City of Goodyear General Plan to the voters of the City of Goodyear pursuant to ARS 9-46106 and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Osborne and a second by Vice Mayor Pizzillo. Open for council discussion. Councilman Campbell?
Well, this is another occasion that we have a star employee in Katie Wilkin putting this plan together. Katie has taken a very dry, boring document that I looked at from before and made it into a wonderful, easy-to-read document with pictures, and she really guided the committee in such a way that the product is just amazing, Katie. And I want to thank you, because I know the million of hours that you spent on this at meetings and in your office and doing CBDG and all the other stuff that you were trying to do. You just did an extraordinary job, and we all thank you for that very much. And the plan is just wonderful.
Thank you for those words. Anybody else? You put it in
She's
great
great.
context.
I'm
I
telling
really
you.
thank you. And also, of course, the chairman and,
Oh, yes.
and all the members of the
Committees.
committee. You had a good committee. You really did. They were really interested in the city. I really like that. And there was a really good combination. But it always takes someone, a good leader, to pull it together. And I know you had help from other parts of our staff, so greatly appreciated. So I think we're ready to vote on this. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Great. Well, 7.7 is to consider approving a purchase order for the fiscal year 2015 for waste management contract. Mark Siemens to present. Mark?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to do my best to make this the shortest presentation of the evening because I have no presentation. This is basically the annual contract renewal and the purchase order for the waste management, collection of the refuse, and the recycling. We're asking for approval of a purchase order in the amount of $4,760,760 684. In 2010, council approved the multi-year contract. It also, under Ordinance Resolution 08-1255, said any purchase orders over $500,000 have to have council approval. This falls under that, and that's what we're asking for this evening. And that ends my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right, can I have a motion, please, and a second to approve purchase order for the fiscal year 2015 Waste Management Incorporated?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Stipp and a second by Councilman Lorentano. Open for council discussion. Vice Mayor?
Quick question, what's the increase on it? I know that contract set was for how many years?
This contract was due to expire in June of 2019.
19, so what's the matrix that we use for this particular one?
It's basically a 3% increase every year.
3%? And what drives that, what is it, the CPI?
It's the contracts, the CPI, exactly.
Okay, so the contract specifically addresses how they will get, how they will get paid
Yes, sir.
based on certain, okay, matrix, okay, thank you.
That makes you feel more comfortable.
Yes.
Yes. Any other?
Well, I was just going to say,
Councilman
since it's going to raise all of our bills
A little bit.
a little bit, and it's built into their contract,
Yes, ma'am.
it is what it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Until 2019, where we can take another look at it.
Correct.
So I just don't want the public to think we're sitting here raising everything tonight.
This is a contractual.
It does a little bit, but, I mean, this is out of our control
Yes,
right
ma'am.
now. So thank you.
Go ahead.
No, it's my understanding, the presentation we got, wastewater's not going up.
Oh, not wastewater.
Wastewater's not, no.
Not
No, I
going
Waste
up.
management.
No, she
No,
used
waste-
waste as an expression.
Oh,
Waste
okay.
management.
You know, we used to call
The
things
garbage.
something different for years, and now we have to be careful of
Can't
those
call it
terms.
garbage
Yeah, sorry.
I'm with you, don't worry.
I meant to say waste management, the garbage people.
garbage,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
That's
It's getting late, so it's...
I'm sorry, okay.
Councilman
It's
Stipp.
late.
I just want to commend Willie for being here this entire time, sitting in the back. Thanks, Willie.
Anything else? Well, thank you then. So we're going to vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll go to 7.8, to consider approving the comprehensive sign program for Centera Crossings. Karen Craver to present.
Thank you, Mayor. The mixed-use Centera Crossings will be just down the street of Estrella Parkway, kitty corner from the Safeway Center, and across the street from Walgreens and Fletcher's Tire. Those of you who were on the council in 2011 will probably remember this underlying concept plan when the multifamily on the east side of it was added to the already approved commercial land uses. And now that we have a approved site plan for an ER facility at the corner, the property owner is stipulated to process this sign package. Per the sign ordinance, this package is before you because they are requesting some deviations. The first deviation is for 2 commercial single-user monument signs, one for that ER facility and one for a potential fuel station convenience store. Typically, each use within a commercial center doesn't have its own monument sign. We felt the one for the ER is warranted because it's essential that people traveling to the facility know exactly how to access it. And the one for the fuel station is typically allowed to publicize pricing information. The second deviation is for the increased height of the multi-tenant monument signage. They're requesting 14.6, code allows 8. They're requesting an area of 80 square feet, code allows 48. Because our preference is for each commercial use to be listed on these multi-tenant monument signs, we felt the increased size would provide better legibility. The third deviation is for additional wall signage for the ER facility, and again, because of the nature, we wanted it very obvious where this facility was. And staff is recommending approval, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval as well.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Could I please have a motion and a second to approve the comprehensive sign program allowing for additional monument signage, increased monument sign height and area, and increased wall sign square footage at the Centera crossings, a mixed-use development to be located at the southeast corner of Estrella Parkway and Van Buren Street within the planned area development district, subject to stipulations. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Campbell and a second by Councilman Stipp. Open for council discussion. Councilman Stipp.
Karen, what, for the 3 years I've been sitting on council, been advocating for signage, and we've got two very different signage packages being presented to us tonight, so I'm prefacing both of those statements with that one. Why is staff recommending approval of this?
Well, as I said, it's not typical within a center that single users have their own monument sign. But because of the nature of this facility, this is an ER facility where if your son fell out of a tree and you've got to rush him someplace, you want to know where you're going, and
Right.
you want to know right how to get to that facility.
The ER part I get. I guess I'm going to try to drive to why are we going to go from 8 feet to 14 feet? Why does staff think that that's a good idea?
Well, again, we want to have them all on one sign. We don't want the individual uses within a commercial center to have their own monument signs. But the thing that's a little funky about our sign ordinance is that it doesn't differentiate between the height of single-user monument signs and multi-tenant monument signs. It's 8 feet, it's 48 square feet, and that's it. So in order to have a monument sign with multi-tenants and make those users very visible for the traveling public, 8 feet really is kind of small.
Okay, thank you.
But by comparison, just so you can think of it in your head, the signs at the Safeway are 12 feet, those multi-tenant signs.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Well, I have to say Yahoo. Okay? I am so pleased to see this come through. I look at some of those little shopping centers that have been fighting over signs, you know, down there where the pet store is, down by the stadium.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have anything to put them on, and then you put this little sign up on the front of the store that doesn't show. I guess it meets the requirements, but doesn't show. So I'm really, thank you, staff. Thank you for being creative and going at this. So that's my comments. And no other discussion. Let's vote on it. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
We're now at 7.9 to consider, I gotta put my glasses on, approving an amendment to Canyon Trails Comprehensive Sign Package. And Steve Carreccia will present. You know, Steve, I mispronounce your name all the time. I think I did it right twice, and I haven't seen any comment from the back of the, yes, thank you.
They give you the
A little,
thumbs up.
little
Yeah,
Go Mayor sign, thank you.
It's going to turn into like a baseball game where you get signs all over.
Yes, well, you know, your mayor needs encouraging once in a while, too.
Well, Mayor, council members, thank you. This is another sign package amendment. This property is located just north of the Safeway, and it is the office building, the existing office building, the two-story one right there. The zoning is commercial. It was approved in 1999 as part of the overall Canyon Trails development. This site plan, which included the office buildings, was approved in 2006. And ultimately, you'll have another office building to the north, which will basically mirror that office building to the south. And this is the site plan. This is Estrella Parkway. This is the one-story office building existing. This is the existing two-story building here, and this is the future building.
Excuse me, is this, I see Estrella, but what's on the side? Is it Roosevelt? Or am I in the wrong shopping center?
Sometimes, I have to say, sometimes these drawing up here on that very finite.
Yeah.
You do have to kind of think, okay, now where is this? If you just
Yeah.
don't remember the shopping center where it is. So it would be helpful sometimes if we did have these streets were a little bit more legible for the people looking at them. So would you answer her question then? You know where you are?
No, do you know where I am? I don't know where I am. That's what I'm asking you for, Steve. Okay, I get Astoria Parkway.
Mayor, council members.
Is it where McDonald's is?
Yes, if I could probably put this into perspective, this is that office building with the multicolored block on the ends.
That doesn't help at all.
That's a pretty building.
George's favorite.
Show her where McDonald's is, that will help.
This,
You know
This
the-
is
the brick.
McDonald's.
Are we talking about the brick?
I don't know.
You
Well,
know-
He just said that's McDonald's.
This-
That's McDonald's.
this is,
this is McDonald's.
No, that's
oh,
Panda.
that shopping center.
Yes.
Okay, I thought that we were going to have a car wash back there somewhere,
That was
Up-
on the street.
Yeah, it's on there.
Up a little
Here.
further north,
a little further north?
in
Okay.
Parkway Village.
By the hotel.
Okay, so then where the red line is, would that be Roosevelt?
No, Roosevelt's
Oh, Roosevelt, okay, this is within the park, okay. I got it.
You got
Thank
it?
you. Mm-hmm,
Okay,
thank you.
all right, you can go ahead.
Oh, gosh.
Nice.
This is the proposed office building and showing the sign bands that the applicant is proposing. Basically, each tenant within the building will have a sign. Basically, the signs will mirror the existing signage on the one-story building. When the sign package was approved, the one-story office building was allowed to have individual tenant wall signs. As part of the negotiations back in 2006, the applicant chose to have a monument along Astoria Parkway instead of signage on the office building. They wanted both. It was negotiation. They chose the monument sign, which was dedicated for users within the office complex. Today, the applicant, they're finding that their tenants do want to advertise, to place their business name on their buildings. And this is
Business.
the proposal. Basically, it mirrors what's on the existing. There'll be individual bronze-colored letters and non-illuminated. If a tenant takes more than one space, they take several or a floor, the signs will adjust accordingly. And just for comparisons, this is today what the building looks like. There's no signage individually for each business. But what they would like to do with this amendment before you is the ability to do this, to have signage for each tenant user. And it would be also on the other side. So it would be facing Astoria Parkway East, is also facing west. And basically, that is the scope of this request. It is just the ability to place the wall signage on the two-story building. We have reviewed it. Because they're requesting something consistent with the center, the signage is basically the same signage allowed on the one-story buildings. We are recommending approval, as well as Planning and Zoning Commission. When we took it to them last month, they recommended approval. With that, Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right. Could I please have a motion and a second to approve an amendment to the Canyon Trails Plaza Comprehensive Sign Package dated March 1st, 2006 for a 19.6-acre mixed-use retail office development generally located on the west side of Australia Parkway, 1/4 mile north of Van Buren, on property zone planned area development, general commercial, PAD C-2 within the Canyon Trails PAD, subject to one stipulation. Do I hear a motion?
So,
Vice Mayor
Second.
Pizzillo motion, was that Councilman
second.
Laura Tano made a second, open for council discussion? Vice Mayor?
just a comment. I know in that area, it's frustrating a lot of times going in there looking for places and you can't find them. I appreciate the signage on here. I'm sure the businesses appreciate it too, for people trying to find them.
I'm excited, we're moving our city ahead. It's called business. Councilman Stitt?
Okay, this is where I'm going to diverge from what I said earlier. This is not keeping with the standard that we have on two-story buildings in the city. So I'm very interested in why staff thinks that this is a good idea as opposed to suggesting a higher monument sign, additional road signs. I can only imagine what this is going to start to look like throughout the city as the other two-story office buildings we have want to be peppered with signs going across them. This is a complete divergence, and I'm curious about staff's approval, and I'm very curious about what P&Z had to say, because this, again, changes the entire facade of the city. When we allow it to happen in one, this is the breaking of the dam, and it's going to just fall through. I appreciate the idea of a 14-foot monument sign that we can list the individual tenants, and I think that there's other things we can do besides peppering the sides of these buildings with signage that, as businesses come and go, that signage changes. And so does the holes in the side and the patterns behind it, et cetera. I'd like to get information behind that.
And along with that, I think we had come to agreement when the sign was taken down. In fact, you brought it up a long time ago. Rather than leave a sign up on the building, the person that closed out a building, they were supposed to take it down and repair the building. Do you remember that some time ago? Am I the only one that even?
Started with Freddie's when that
I thought
took
there's
over a
someone,
long time
so-
ago, yeah.
So that's, anyway. I'm sorry, who was the next one on?
Did you want his?
Yeah, you want to answer the question?
Mayor, council members, in looking at the signage request, they did not request additional monument signage or signage, directory signage. They already have the monument sign up front along Estrella Parkway. And basically, per code, there would be no room for another. They exceeded the amount. They were allowed 2, they got 3 for the center. So they have 3 monument signs for that center.
Can we change the height of those monument signs to accommodate this? If this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 business names, can we change the height of those monument signs to allow, can we get to 14 feet like we did the other one, and would that get 10 of them in there? I'm not going to put you on the spot and have you answer that exactly right now, but did that possibility come up? Was that discussed?
It's a big expense on that.
Well, I realize, but so is hanging the signs on the side of the building, so.
Well, they won't be painting them.
There'll be,
Yeah.
Well, I understand, that's what I'm saying. I want to do everything we can, but this is going to turn us into Las Vegas, for crying out loud. I realize they're not lighted, so.
actually, if you drive through Scottsdale, you drive through Phoenix,
They're on the buildings.
they're around the building, because it's something about people want to know where the business is that they have to go visit or do business with. And on a sign, on the monument sign, they're fine, but you still don't know where you're going. You just know somewhere in that little area there might be that shop. And so you hear a big office building like this, it's very hard. Sherry?
Well, you kind of stole my point. When you go downstairs at the new, or downtown at the new Phoenix, the Cityscape, they have all the different law firms that are in that giant tower, and they are on the side just like this. Scottsdale down the 101, all of the buildings are like this. Arrowhead Financial Center's like this. And this shopping center, I totally appreciate your point, but this shopping center, I just drove by there this morning, has lost the bike shop. There is it is empty in there. People don't know what's in there. So and as a business owner, the worst thing is not to know where your business is if someone's going there, because people just give up and don't go there if they can't find you. So as long as they're done professional and the signs obviously fit our code and they're, then I am fine with it, because most of these, that's how it's done in the valley, and it looks nice and it looks professional and it makes it look like there's people in there, which, we're losing businesses. That whole strip in that center, one of the strip centers is, I think, empty other than Southwest by the Ace Hardware. It's just Southwest now.
Maybe what we might want to consider is coming back later with making sure, because that discussion about making sure the signs are taken off of the building when they go out of business, we've had that come before us.
I don't know that it came before us, we discussed it. We've discussed
I
it.
just remember it. So, maybe that's something that we want to do, so that when the building, in this case, probably they have a manager of the building and he'll make sure that happens. But if it's an abandoned building or somebody's gone belly up, maybe something like that would work.
Well, one idea, Mayor, if I may, is
Yes.
that if whoever owns the building, if they're coming before us for the signage, it can be a part of a stipulation, maybe. But I was going to say that particular shopping center, it's very, very difficult to figure out who is in there. There's one building that I went around 3 times to find the person I was going to go see because I didn't know that was his building. And it's really very hard. So looking at this building, if they had 6 dentists or 4 dentists and 4 general practitioners, it would be nice to see the name on the building, then you'd know you're at least at the right place.
A medical center.
Yeah.
But in this case, we don't know what's going to be in it, so
No,
they
and
like
it's
the
so far
versatility.
away from the street, we're going to see the sign, but not really. You're going to have to drive in to see it, and once you get there, you can figure it out. So it's not going to detract from the neighborhood at all.
Well-
And if anything, it's going to enhance those businesses and maybe get other people in that shopping center.
I can identify with how Bill feels about this, like
Sure.
Councilman Stiff feels about this, because, our design guidelines were similar to that, but when
Times
they
are
don't
changing.
work, then you got to change them, and they weren't working, and our design guidelines weren't working, and so we had to change them, and this is just moving forward on your city. Now, it's up to us to make sure, and up to staff to make sure that sign looks good, it's out of the right materials, and that maybe we can figure out a way that we could protect the city and the looks of a building when they go out of business. So, yeah, Councilman Stipp.
So effectively, we are changing our sign ordinance one building at a time. That's essentially what we're doing tonight.
Yep.
Mayor, council members, in the sign code, an individual business is allowed a wall sign, and they've kept to that criteria in a sense of it's 1 square foot of copy area per 1 square foot of their leased frontage. So they complied with that. In the past, we have taken the direction we have had with office buildings is to try to keep the signage to a center identification, and then have directories, and then maybe a monument out front, trying to steer away from
This.
individual tenant signage.
That's why we wander around in the parking lot, because we can't read the little thing anyway on it, and so we can't find what we need.
And that
So,
is what
yeah.
the applicant has come to us.
And I think that can be done in good taste, and I think it's up to us to make sure, and staff to make sure, that the materials and how we do it is in a proper manner. But we just have to think about, the businesses want to grow in Goodyear, and they need to know where they are. So that's my opinion. Anyway, Councilman Osborne?
Well, for this specific case, I understand it completely, and I believe that I can support this, given the area that it's located. I understand the precedent that Councilmember Stipp is concerned about, and there is an image that we still have, and it's a good image. And I think that there's no problem, I have no problem, case by case, of looking at the full sign package for centers like this. And if this is the type of thing that is going to work well for that center, then so be it. It may not work well on a street frontage in another area of town. And so, I would hate to say that we are I don't feel that we're changing our ordinance tonight by allowing this. I think that this is, to me, something that's affordable for that area because those buildings need it back there. So, on this case, I agree with it.
Councilman Holman?
My comment was similar in that sometimes pragmatics have got to take priority. We need our businesses to stay in business, and signage is a very important part of, which we've all said, in of locating. And I like what you said, Joanne. I think we need to be more flexible, because I think that's been part of the challenge, is that it was hard and fast and no exceptions and we can't do it. But that's not what the world is like. And so I'm quite honestly very glad to see that we are taking a stand, that there are different circumstances, and that we need to take into consideration the success of the business, and rigidity is not always the right way to go.
Any other comments? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we had one nay, the rest ayes. All right, let's go to 7.10, to approving a special event ordinance. Sarah Chilton to present.
This should be short.
Mayor Lord, council members, I guess I'm batting cleanup tonight, since I'm the last one on the agenda. On March 17th, 2004, Byron Jones and I came before council during a work session and presented a proposed draft of a special events ordinance. As you'll recall, there was a lot of discussion at that time about the ordinance. Briefly summarized, the ordinance identified what types of events would be subject to a requirement for a special event permit. It imposed certain requirements for the operations of special events, set out general procedures for the issuance of the special event permits, including authorization of staff to impose conditions of approval. It authorized the city manager to administratively adopt additional rules, regulations, and policies for the issuance of special events and for the operations of special events. And it provided conditions for the approval or denial so that there were some standards imposed in the ordinance. It provided for the appeals process and the enforcement of the ordinance. Those are the broad outline of it. During the meeting, there was substantial discussion about the types of events that were covered, and some of the council members had expressed an interest in revising the definition of what constituted a special event in various ways. One of the issues that had arisen at that time concerned block parties. Block parties would technically be covered by the special event ordinance because it involves the closing of a public or private street. And in that regard, the city has an interest in addressing that because of the public safety need to get through the street. So we want to make sure that they know what they can and they can't do in public streets. And one of the requirements, one of the events that was already going to be covered under the old definition or the originally proposed definition was anything that impacted the city streets or sidewalks. But council thought that that wasn't explicit enough for people to understand that block parties fell within this definition. So that was one of the issues that was presented. There was an issue raised about whether this applied to any indoor events. And maybe I'll step back for Councilmember Osborne's benefit because she wasn't at the first meeting. But originally, the proposed draft would apply to any special event that had 50 or more people and that was held wholly or in part outdoors. And the intent was, in that regard, was these are the types of events that impact the neighboring businesses, residents, adjacent property owners, because it creates noise, it creates traffic, it creates parking problems. So all outdoor events with 50 or more participants were going to be subject to it. Then there were other types of events, whether, regardless of it was one person, 100 people, 1,000 people, because of the types of activities that they were engaged in, they would also be subject to the requirement to get a special event ordinance. And that is, those included anything that involved the closing or partial closing of a public street or right-of-way, that blocked or restricted access to adjacent property owners, that involved the use of fireworks or special effects, large open flames such as bonfires. Again, for obvious reasons, these create externalities or safety hazards to the general public that we wanted to address. And it also included any sort of activity that deviated from the current legal land use or legal non-conforming use for the property. It involved, you'd have to have a special event permit for anything involving outdoor amplified sound or the installation of mechanical amusement rides and or the construction of temporary or portable buildings, or activities that involve the display of, at that time, exotic or non-domesticated animals, or that required a state-issued temporary extension of a liquor license permit. It also included parades. So again, these are the types of events, outdoor events, that have effects beyond the property upon which that event was held. And that was kind of the thinking of how we were going to regulate that. Council again had the concern, even though we had a general catch-all that if you're going to close a public right-of-way, that we also, that it would affect, that would include block parties, but council wanted that more explicit. So the revised ordinance that I'm presenting today includes a definition of block parties to clarify that they are indeed subject to a special event permit requirement. The other issue that came up during the meeting was involved the use of what we did for indoor events. And the thought was indoor events don't have the same types of issues that an outdoor event does. It's not going to have the same kind of impact on the neighboring properties and that sort of event, in that sort of thing. But Councilmember Stipp had raised an issue about an event that was held, I think it was Sky Kids, over at the airport hangar. And so that could have been wholly inside and wouldn't be subject to a special event. And he was concerned that we would have no way to regulate what went on there because it was indoors, and it could present safety issues because that hangar is not designed and isn't zoned for those kinds of activities. So fire may have issues with what they were doing inside, and that was, he had raised that issue. So the revisions that I'm proposing tonight addressed his concern in terms of applying to indoor events with 50 or more people that the use is inconsistent with the zoning for the property. And originally, when we had talked during the work session, there was a thought that maybe the zoning code already required a temporary permit, but it did not address indoor events. So we had to either cover it here or amend the zoning code. It was much easier to do it here. So after the meeting, the other issue that was raised, there was, people were thinking of you, Councilmember Osborne.
I saw some animal issues.
They were concerned about the animal issues, and Councilmember Pizzillo raised that issue for you, and he was concerned that we were over-regulating, especially with the schools. And so there were some exceptions for the school events, but one of the requirements, because we're not, schools regularly have events with 50 or more people, so that's not going to be required. They also have amplified sound. We're not going to make them get a special event permit when they're, have a football game with a loudspeaker. So that's an exception that was already built in. But there were other things, if they're going to have a bonfire, if they're going to restrict access to the streets, whether they were going to have a parade that affected outside of their area, other than noise and numbers of people, they were going to have to comply with the special events ordinance. And one that Councilmember Pizzillo raised was, they have 4-H, there's a lot of 4-H types of things in the schools. And so when I came back, I defined non-domesticated animals to make sure that we weren't encumbering or encompassing events that covered cows, pigs, donkeys, that sort of thing, the types of things that you would have, chickens. You might have
shows.
Yeah. So it would be, it would apply to those kinds of events that included wild animals, reptiles, or fowls that are not naturally tame or gentle, but are of a wild nature or disposition. And that because of its size, vicious nature, or other characteristics would constitute a danger to human life or property. So we put in a more restrictive definition of what we meant by non-domesticated animals so that we're not going to get the types of things that you have expressed concerns about in the past. And that revision was included in the special events ordinance. Councilmember Stipp had raised some concerns about the authority of and the involvement of fire personnel. We have the ordinance includes a definition of a special event review committee and who is involved in it, and it's pretty expansive that we can add and take off, but we wanted to make sure that you have both fire inspectors at the plan review stage and fire inspectors involved post-plan review. It's like post-occupancy and pre-occupancy is the way I've described it, because Councilmember Stipp's concern was that's great that you have somebody who has approved the plans, but we want to make sure that that what's actually out there and how they're operating is consistent with the plans, and so we amended it to clarify that both sides of that equation would be represented in this special event. And along with that change, we also clarified, we had authority for the police chief to shut down a special event if it was creating a disturbance, if it was operating outside of the parameters of its permit. But the more likely scenario would be a fire, some kind of fire code provision that's not being violated, or a fire hazard. And so the revised ordinance presented today includes a provision that allows the fire chief or his designee to terminate for the same reason, not complying with the terms of special event permit or some other health, safety, welfare. And those are the primary changes. We took your comments, though. The last change we had talked during during the meeting about the waiver provision, the fee waiver, and we received some direction from council on that. The original ordinance that was presented did not include a fee waiver provision. So based on what the discussion that we had, essentially we've provided for a waiver of not the special event permit fee. That is like a flat $25 processing fee. But many times these events, and the reason they have to get a permit in the first place is we want to make sure that they're doing what they need to do, is they need a fire permit because they're putting a tent up, or they're using a large generator or an open fire. So they might need a fire permit, or they have so much traffic, they need a traffic control permit. The waiver will allow for 501c3 corporations and schools, public schools, to those fees would be waived up to the amount of money that council budgets. I mean, we have a line item budget, so we can waive, and it's really based on a first come, first served basis. But there is a provision in there that allows for the waivers of those fees. And those are the changes that we made. Otherwise, I think we were there wasn't a lot of comments, at least during the work session, on the special events ordinance, other than those comments that I've addressed here tonight.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right, will the city clerk, please, now we're doing the two resolutions. You see we're doing 1 and 2, and we're going to vote on it from from Sarah's presentation. So will the city clerk please read Resolution 14-1648 by title only, please?
Adopt Resolution 14-1648, declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk entitled Chapter 26 Special Events.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, a second, please?
So moved. Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Stipp and a second by Vice Mayor Pizzillo. Open for council discussion.
I just have a quick question.
Yes, Councilman Campbell?
Okay. Am I understanding this correct? If we do a block party and we're going to block a street, we need a permit.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to do a block party at my house, I don't need a permit.
Right. Like if you're not going to block off a street or a sidewalk, you don't need a
Okay.
permit.
And my second concern is if we do adopt this tonight, it's very important that the community policing officers get this information out to all the block watch captains so that they know they now have to, if they're going to block a street, they're going to have to come and get a permit from the city.
The city clerk's office already has a plan for public outreach, and I think that the city clerk will add that. I didn't realize there were block watch captains.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of us, yeah, and we're all
really
over the
hadn't seen
city.
that, so I guess we'll coordinate with PD. But they have an outreach program where we'll send information to the HOAs. We'll send information to, and please step in because I'm sure I'm missing something that you've already got on your list.
I was just concerned about the block watch
to the company
captains.
or to the persons or organizations that have gotten permits from us in the past to tell them what's required. So I think that outreach should cover that. We'll do it, I think they planned on an in focus.
Correct.
Putting it on the website.
Okay, and we're not making it any harder to get a permit, are we?
No.
With all of this language that we've now incorporated in?
No, it just really created some standards so
Okay.
people understand what they're supposed to do.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Councilman Holman?
Unfortunately, I believe that was the only council meeting that I've had to miss is when I
I'm
was
sorry,
in.
I didn't.
And so there were some things that I did take to the manager that I was concerned about and bad me, and I didn't follow up on it. So I would like to ask a couple of questions. One is there any insurance involved that is being required for this special event permit?
The insurance requirements are for events that are held on city property where a special event would be required. Except for the ballpark. The ballpark is any events held at the ballpark pursuant to a contract. That's solely outside of this process. They will make sure that they've complied with the fire code, but it's going to be like a one-stop shop for them. But in terms of other insurance, anything that's on city property, we will require. But we also included a requirement that regardless if it's where it is, for fireworks displays, they have to have a minimum of $5 million of insurance. Again, it's not necessarily for our liability, but, they're engaging in an activity that presents substantial exposure. So we want to make sure that there's some insurance coverage in place for fireworks.
Okay, but if we're having a block party, there is no requirement for insurance?
Well,
I'm asking.
technically, a block party would be considered to be held on city property because
You're on the street.
You're on the street. Now, we're talking to the risk manager because we don't think that it's really feasible for block parties to do that. And that is what we're anticipating our regulations will have, that the insurance requirement will not apply to block parties because, number one, there's too many people involved in it. Who gets the insurance? Who's responsible for the insurance?
Who pays for it?
There is a program that we have through our risk pool that you can buy special event coverage for $75, but for block parties, we really haven't seen that kind of activity. So our recommendation will be that the regulations that are adopted do not include requirements for insurance for block parties. Because they're the kind of events, you want those kind of community events.
That would be my point, is that by some of the restrictions, and having been in a special event such as a very long time, I'm very concerned about this, very concerned about it. The harder you make it, the less comfortable it is, and people will go where it's more comfortable. And does that make sense to anybody here? George, it doesn't look like you.
No, I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm listening.
I just, and there's a cost for the permit,
$25.
$25.
Yeah, who's going to pay for it in a block watch?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I understand the intentions behind it, but I don't think it's been very well thought out about the unintentional consequences. I'm very concerned. The other thing and I think I'm understanding more what's meant by that, but the reference to a special committee through the city clerk's office, I'm beginning to understand that's the fire, the police, the whatever to review that, so it's more bureaucracy.
Well, the intent of this is you have these events where they're going to affect other people's property. It's one thing to say you can do what you want on your property, but when what you want to do has an adverse impact on the neighboring property, that's when the city has an interest. I mean, we have had complaints in the past about events that we have had. But I think that the committee would view this as almost facilitating special events, because what will happen is we have a single clearinghouse through the city clerk's office. Whether or not they get a special event permit, that's not going to excuse them from complying with the fire code or the traffic safety requirements, traffic laws. So whether they get it, they still would have to get the other permits. And the thinking was that by going through this process, we can identify everything that they need. There's a one-stop clearinghouse for them. They may not know that the fire code requires them to have a fire tent permit. And we've adopted the fire code. So, they may not know, and it's usually fire and police. And if it's going to affect traffic, you want to have traffic control out there. Otherwise, you're going to have a very unsuccessful event. I am a little bit surprised because I think every city has these special event requirements, permit requirements. I mean, we've looked at a number of different ordinances. What we've tried to do with ours is to have some certainty so they understand what we're looking at and why we can deny it. It's like, we can't just deny it unless it creates some kind of special risk that we can't mitigate some way. So the intent is to address the externalities on neighboring businesses and neighboring property owners.
I hear what she's saying. I'm not convinced that what I'm hearing is a good idea at this time. I just think there are going to be some unintentional
And then I think that
consequences.
my advice to you is to vote your heart.
I will.
Okay, all right. Vice Mayor? Councilman Osborne, I just promoted you again. Sorry about that.
Okay, so I understand many of the items in here, I do get, first of all, I guess question why this came to us. Have there been a bunch of issues out there with police and fire that they feel that, they need to have some more regulation or something, is my first question.
We've been doing this informally, but there are people who say, well, we're not going to do this. It's not in your code. So to the extent we want to make sure that people are complying, we had to basically include it in our code provision. So it's been something that has been going on. Most of these people will not have any, it won't be a change for them because they're already submitting special event permit applications. The ones who have said, we're not going to do it because it's not in your code, we'll be able to make sure that they comply with it.
Let me stop you. What's the consequences if they didn't and something happened? We have a very litigious community anymore, people sue at the drop of a hat. So let's put it that way. Let's just start talking what happens to our city. What are the consequences to us if anything happens during some of these events?
You could get sued for anything. So, it's hard to say. There's different levels of liability for the city. If it's on our property, we're going to have a different set of liability than if we're just permitting. But, what we're trying to do is, if they want to have, say they had the run down the street, comparable to the P.F. Chang's, I forget what it was, but, they
Color
closed.
dash. Homeless Youth Connection wants to do a color dash.
Yes, so they did a color dash. So they had to block off a bunch of streets. We needed to have police personnel out there.
That's understandable.
Because, and it was, clearly, you're going to want to make sure, if we're allowing people to run down our street, we want to make sure that we've taken measures to mitigate the risk to the participants.
Well, I have I just want to clarify other items, because especially like the wholly indoor situation. So are we saying that businesses, are they going to be protected in their own sense of events? I mean,
If it's wholly indoors and it's use that's consistent, most of those uses are going to be consistent with the zoning for the property. You can have, a business event, like.
well, it's a grand opening, or it's
Right.
I don't know,
That would be an ancillary.
St. Swithin's Day celebration.
That would be an ancillary use to what they already have.
Okay.
But we're talking about things that are wholly unrelated to the zoning on the property, and I think that Councilmember Stiff's example was the best one. He
Okay,
said-
so then that can be fundraisers then, fundraising situations, okay? That can be not, things that occur in Pebble Creek all the time that I can think of. They do a lot of fundraising events.
we do.
Are each one of those events going to have some kind of?
No, because they're held in a community facility. I would assume you're talking about a community
Okay.
facility.
So
that's-
residential type of events that are over 50 people don't have to have.
Yep.
Okay. Schools, I know the situation came up because of the animals, but schools
Well,
don't
schools
have to
would,
have
schools
events.
wouldn't have to have it because it's exempt from zoning.
But
So
homecoming parade,
if they closed our street, you would want them to have a special event
okay,
permit.
because parade was another one. Clubs, okay, so meeting places.
No, you wouldn't have to have it. Estrella has these monthly meetings, I forget what they're called.
Cocktails and conversation.
Cocktails and Conversations. They're over 50 people. They wouldn't be required because
We're
it's
inside.
and it's consistent with the zoning for where those are held.
So besides Sky Kids and a Color Dash and a parade, and say somebody having a big birthday party at a park that wants to bring a petting zoo or something, those obviously would have to have, especially, I'm trying to think of scenarios where this comes into play that people aren't used to not having to get a permit. I guess the block watch or the HOA parties or something like that where they're going to.
And the HOA parties, unless they're going to be outdoor parties with a lot of noise that will affect the neighborhood, yeah. But, it's minimal application process for that. Unless they're putting up big tents or, having some other kind of use that amplified sound.
I know.
Okay, I think that,
All right.
I'm not sure.
So, well, let's put it for a vote, okay? So may I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Holman?
No.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
I'm going to say no.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 4-3.
All right. So now we're on the second one, right? We have to vote for that one yet. Is that correct? I want to make sure.
Oh, yeah, there's
It's
two
getting
parts.
late.
Two parts.
So, will the city clerk please read ordinance 14-1301 by title only, please?
Adopt ordinance 14-1301, amending the Goodyear City Code by adding Chapter 26, Special Events, providing for an effective date, providing for penalties, providing for severability, and providing for correction of Scrivener's errors.
Can I have a motion, a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Stipp and a second by Vice Mayor Pizzillo. Open for council discussion. No discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Nay.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Holman?
No.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 4-3.
All right, thank you. So just to verify this on 7.11, the item on business to consider the city charter amendment to change election date has been moved to July 7th at our council meeting. So let's go right into comments and commendations. Anybody have any things they want to talk about tonight?
Can we give a quick rundown?
Yeah, you go right
Okay,
ahead.
I'll do a quick rundown, really, really quick. Last week, I went to Avondale's farewell to Mayor Rogers and gave her your very best wishes, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm
And
sorry I couldn't go to it.
It was all right. It was a lovely event. I went to the GPEC Ambassador event, Workforce Development. I attended the Arizona Assistance in Healthcare Board of Directors. They're planning a huge fundraiser during a prelude to Super Bowl on January 17th, and I'll give you more details later. I attended ComStat with Councilmember Holman. I attended the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors meeting. I attended the Area Agency on Aging Board of Directors and was elected second vice president
Good,
of that board.
congratulations.
Thank you. And I attended the GPEC tour of Sub-Zero with Mayor Lord, and it was wonderful. I attended the planning meeting for Shop with a Cop in the home tour. We're in the throngs of getting that
great.
put together, and we probably have already put in 200 or 300 hours just planning this event.
A good event.
It is a wonderful event, thank you. And I attended the EPA meeting at the Pebble Creek homeowners regarding the monitor well, and it was very well attended, and the homeowners are very comfortable with it going in. And Crane Consultants attended, and there was no opposition to the well. And that was it. That was my...
Anybody else? All right, I have lots to tell you, but I don't have it together tonight. I'm slowly fading. I started very early in the evening fading, so.
She's 2 hours ahead.
What's your guest, city manager, comments?
Yes, Mayor, Council, I'll be extremely brief. This is the last minute before July 4th, so
Just want to advise you that we are having our 4th of July Star Spangled 4th, 6 to 10, and Fry's Food Store is the sponsor this year. We are trying for another Guinness Book of World Records attempt. The current record is 291 for the largest soul train dance, so we'll be getting the word out on that.
Sounds like fun.
Village Inn pie eating contest, lots of events for the kids, and it is free to the public. The other is the West Valley Hospital Trauma Center, very excited about this, but the open house is Tuesday, July 1st, 5:30 to 7:30. So again, as a level 1 trauma, that's a terrific addition to this community. So encourage you, if you're available, to attend that. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. So the next meeting will be a workshop and a regular meeting to be held on July 7th. No further discussion, meeting adjourned. It's good to go to that.